Unlock the true potential of dark psychology with this blueprint. Dive deep into the depths of the human psyche with this bundle that will teach you everything you need to know about dark psychology, manipulation, and body language.
Hello, this is Eric Holt, and you are listening to Dark Psychology and Mind Control. Learn how to analyze people, decode body language, and master manipulation using covert NLP, subliminal persuasion, emotional influence, hypnosis techniques, and more. Provided to you by United Audiobooks. I hope you enjoy my audiobook. Now, let us begin.
Introduction. Do you want to delve deeper into the darker side of a human's personality and behavior? Then studying dark psychology will give you clarity in that area. Yes, this topic may be kind of new, but you can now find a lot of people who are interested in it and are trying to explore and uncover its complexities. If you want to learn about dark psychology, take note that it has broad coverage. It encompasses a lot of areas, even those related to serial killers, criminal behaviors, self-destructive tendencies, and manipulation. With this very wide coverage, one can safely assume that this field is so fascinating that it will uncover things not only about yourself, but also humans in general. One crucial reminder about the practice and use of dark psychology, though, is that it is inherently unethical. This is the reason why you need proper and adequate guidance before you should start using it. The goal is to widen your knowledge about it first, so you can use it without endangering yourself and others. You should be knowledgeable on its proper and effective use to prevent the dangers usually associated with it, including emotional and psychological manipulation, and worst, crimes. Fortunately, this book about dark psychology is now around to help you gain clarity and enlightenment on the many things related to this field. It holds a lot of valuable information regarding dark psychology, thereby increasing your chance of mastering it anytime soon and ensuring that you get to use it to your advantage without neglecting good morals and ethics. Now, it's time to begin your journey to understanding dark psychology and how to use it properly. Dark psychology. What it is and how does it work? Most people have already heard about psychology and what it means. It is basically the field of study that tackles human behaviors. What many people are unfamiliar with and perceive as mysterious is one facet of psychology called dark psychology. Some even find it creepy because it comes with the word dark. Dark psychology actually captured the attention and interest of people nowadays because of the mystery revolving around it. It centers on persuasion, mind control, and manipulation, which is why it also comes with a lot of misunderstanding and mystery as it tends to cover the darker facets of humans. It was even discovered that it applies persuasion, coercion, and manipulation as a means of harming the recipient. Many also describe it as a natural means of causing emotional or psychological abuse and manipulation. While it is kind of disturbing and harmful, the proper use of it can still be expected to have positive effects on the practitioner and the target. All it takes is to understand the ethical and harmless way of practicing dark psychology. How does dark psychology work? In general, dark psychology refers to a new and interesting field of study which revolves around understanding how people use persuasion and manipulation tactics to reach their goals. This topic is kind of controversial as it is possible to use it either for good or evil. To master this field, though, set a constant reminder about the importance of being extremely cautious in its practice. It is because this tool, when used irresponsibly and carelessly, will turn out to be uncontrollable, powerful, and dangerous. The main premise behind the practice of dark psychology is to understand and exploit human psychology's weaknesses. It involves gaining a full understanding of the actual feelings, emotions, and thoughts of those around you. You can then use these details to manipulate and persuade them to do what you want. Dark psychology, therefore, has plenty of uses, one of which is to convince potential clients to avail of your offers. Practicing dark psychology can also go as dark and as intense as persuading someone to commit crimes or do anything evil. Note, though, that while some dark psychology practitioners use this technique for wicked and evil purposes, others are reasonable and responsible enough that they only use it for the general good. For instance, various dark psychology tactics are now being used by therapists for patients who want to overcome their phobias and fears. Police officers also practice dark psychology every now and then to extract information and confessions from witnesses, suspects, and criminals. Is dark psychology the same as psychology of manipulation? Yes. In fact, the psychology of manipulation is the main premise behind the practice of dark psychology. In other words, it involves the use of manipulation tactics and techniques to influence and control the attitudes and behaviors of those around you. You can use such techniques in exploiting the vulnerabilities and weaknesses of your target. You can also use it to enjoy personal benefits and gains. One key fact about manipulation is that it is covert and subtle. With that said, you may have a hard time detecting whether you have already been manipulated. It encompasses a lot of techniques, including deception, cognitive distortions, and emotional manipulation. Such techniques aim to make the target develop doubts, uncertainties, and confusion in their minds. At a glimpse, here are the most commonly used dark psychology tactics designed to exploit the biases, cognitive restrictions, and vulnerabilities of people. Emotional manipulation, which makes use of different feelings and emotions to manipulate and influence the behaviors and thoughts of your target. Social influence, which utilizes authority, peer pressure, and conformity as a means of persuading others to stick to specific behaviors and attitudes. Cognitive distortions, which involves the use of logical fallacies, selective attention, and misinformation to shape and form the perception and beliefs of others. Lies and deception, which means you will have to use half-truths, false information, or omission so you can confuse and mislead those around you. Control and power, which is all about the use of rewards, punishments, or threats as a means of asserting your control or dominance over the other. The techniques here also aim to shape one's behaviors. Mirroring, which involves adapting the mannerisms and behaviors of another to obtain power and control. Anchoring, which often occurs whenever someone negotiates with another. Here, one party will supply a starting point at first, which will serve as the benchmark for the settlement. The discussion or negotiation will then be anchored or centered around the benchmark before the two parties explore the adjustment prices for the settlement even further. Agreeableness bias, which works by depending on superficial similarities and neglecting systematic differences between the viewpoints and core beliefs of people. The goal here is to earn the trust of those around them. Seduction, which aims to obtain bonds and attachments depending on trauma. These traumatic bonds are the ones that develop or leverage psychological wounds instead of mature affection and love. Innuendos, involving the use of loaded statements and communicating them to people without providing explicit explanations on what they mean. This can greatly affect the ability of someone to make decisions since they have already succumbed to manipulation. Understanding dark psychology triad. When studying dark psychology, it is crucial to delve deeper into the popular triad that is associated with it. Note that there is what we call the dark psychology triad, which refers to a group comprising 3 traits frequently detected together in those who practice manipulation and demonstrate a lack of sympathy or empathy and callousness. It is actually common to find and recognize these 3 traits in just one person. However, there is also a possibility to see each one independently. This means that one may only have one of the traits in this triad and still be able to practice dark psychology without any problem at all. However, those who possess the 3 traits in the triad are known for being dangerous, so you have to consider avoiding them. Narcissism. One trait in the triad that you have to be familiar with is narcissism. You can detect narcissistic behaviors in those who tend to have a superior sense of self-importance. In addition to having no empathy for others, narcissism also makes one desperate for admiration. Narcissistic people commonly prioritize their desires and needs over those around them. It is even highly likely for them to display exploitative or manipulative behavior just to get the results they want. Psychopathy. The dark psychology triad also comprises what we call the psychopathy trait. This particular trait is most likely present in those who have no empathy, conscience, or remorse. The problem with psychopathy is that it makes one who possesses this trait to be more prone to getting reckless and impulsive. They also tend to manipulate, control, or deceive others. Despite displaying these negative behaviors, they are incapable of showing remorse or feeling guilty for the things they did. Machiavellianism. The last trait in the triad is Machiavellianism, which can also be described as an exploitative and manipulative tactic that supports social relations. Those who possess Machiavellian traits are highly likely to focus only on their goals and needs. They lack interest in others' desires and needs. Machiavellianism will also prompt them to manipulate or deceive others so they can obtain more control and power. It is crucial to note that while the three mentioned traits are capable of occurring independently, you can often see these qualities together in those who possess the dark triad. In that case, you can expect these dark triad personalities to be capable of manipulating, exploiting, and endangering other people for pleasure and personal gain. You have to detect these traits not only within yourself, but also in others so you can prevent the possible damage and harm associated with them. Note, though, that it is kind of hard to identify those who have the dark triad qualities. The reason is that they have already mastered how to conceal their real personalities and identities. They are even skilled in making themselves look charismatic, confident, and charming despite the fact that they do not truly have those qualities. Be observant and vigilant so you can avoid being a victim of those who have dark triad personalities. Avoid being victimized by them. Otherwise, you may end up having to deal with psychological and emotional issues, including trauma, depression, and anxiety for a long time. However, if you discover that you have ended up becoming a victim of them, act promptly by seeking the help and support of your loved ones right away. It even helps to look for a therapist who can help you overcome the effects. By detecting such traits and addressing them immediately, it will be easier for you to develop more positive, stronger, and healthier relationships with those around you. Should you avoid using dark psychology? Based on its name, it is safe to assume that dark psychology naturally has negative and dangerous effects. One reason behind it is that it relies greatly on deceit, manipulation, persuasion, and other tactics that seem to contrast the ethics and morals of humans. Despite having plenty of uses, it is highly recommended to avoid practicing it in professional settings. The main reason is that it not only creates an unethical environment devoid of guidelines or rules, but also because the use of deceptive techniques may make the business prone to losing the trust of their workers. This practice may also cause them to tarnish the reputation of the company, alienate their stakeholders, undermine work relationships, and face legal issues. However, if you are serious about mastering dark psychology, you should make it a point to not only research comprehensively about the topic, but also ensure that you get adequate training. Make sure that you truly have a strong and clear grasp of what dark psychology is all about. Be on the know on how to use it to your advantage while preventing its drastic effects on people. Understand its repercussions first. Otherwise, your amateurish use of it may result in conflicts, poor collaboration, and relationships and compromised communication both in your personal and professional life. Still, you do not have to avoid the act of practicing dark psychology completely. Just commit to being a responsible, cautious, and reasonable user of it. How to detect a manipulator and protect yourself from them. The most common users of manipulation and dark psychology are those who hold high positions in power, making them want to gain full control of their targets. For instance, several politicians utilize dark psychology and manipulate the media to present them to the public in a favorable manner. Salespeople also make use of manipulation techniques to persuade prospective customers to buy products from them, even those that are non-essential. The boss or leader in a company may also want to study dark psychology so they can use it in controlling their employees and ensuring that they keep on doing what they want. However, remember that despite having a bad reputation for being immoral and unethical, manipulation and dark psychology still have positive uses. In fact, certain professions and groups of people use manipulation tactics for the benefit of everyone. For one, a law enforcement officer who is skilled in dark psychology may use it to acquire more useful information from suspects of a crime. Most psychologists practice dark psychology too, so they can understand the minds of their patients better. This practice is also what helps them in guiding their patients to overcome their challenges. With that, it is safe to say that any user or practitioner of dark psychology can gain benefits from it. It is just extremely necessary to understand the way dark psychology techniques work, so you will have an easier time defending or protecting yourself from them. Also, your solid knowledge and training in dark psychology will ensure that you will only use it for good in case you will be in a state wherein you have to use its tactics. Spotting and detecting manipulators. Expert manipulators are everywhere. So likely, you have already encountered one at least once in your life. A lot of manipulators are even so good at what they are doing that their target is already abused for a long time without them knowing about it. An expert manipulator is therefore difficult to spot considering the fact that they work stealthily. There are even instances when they commit crimes without leaving any fingerprints at all. Still, despite having the ability to work stealthily, there is a chance for you to detect them and the negative things they are doing to you. All it takes is to practice vigilance and observe the personalities and behaviors of everyone approaching and surrounding you. To spot and detect a manipulator, find out if they are showing most, if not all, of the mentioned qualities and signs. Too charming, friendly, and nice. One thing that a manipulator may do is use their charming and friendly demeanor to acquire what they want. Example, sex or power. It is easy for manipulators to show their charm on the surface even if what they feel inside is the opposite. The reason is that aside from being ruthless, most manipulators do not also have qualms about causing pain to anyone. A manipulator is even willing to practice dirty tactics to persuade or seduce someone, which is a thing that a reasonable and decent person can't do. They are so passionate about human behavior that there is a chance that they already know what you truly need and desire within just a few moments of being with you. Upon detecting your needs and desires, it is greatly possible for them to provide for you. This will eventually result in you becoming overly dependent on the manipulator. Constant lying and denial. Other areas where manipulators are known to be real experts include lying and denying. For instance, let's say that someone did something wrong to you and misbehaved. Once you decide to confront them, expect them to deny it. Denial is imminent even if it is clear and there is evidence that they indeed misbehaved. Any blatant attempt to lie or deny what they did should prompt you to be on your guard. If you have proof, never allow their lie or denial to confuse you. Just be prepared for them to play innocent as you confront them and make you, the victim, feel like confrontation is unjustified. Also, you have to be really vigilant in detecting a manipulator's lie as it is their most powerful weapon. The fact that their conscience is impaired means that lying is not a big deal to them. Expert manipulators are already capable of lying subtly and covertly. One sign that they are already doing is if they withhold a substantial number of important details from you. They also tend to distort or twist the truth, and they are experts in doing so. Fortunately, you can learn how to catch a liar and defend yourself from these manipulators. Spot them right away by asking questions directly about things that are vital to them, like their family, friends, relatives, address, career, and future plans, among many others. In case you receive evasive, unclear, or vague and inconsistent responses, it could be an indication that they are indeed lying. Gives flattery and compliments excessively. Receiving flattery and compliments can definitely make your day. These compliments can make you feel good and somehow raise your confidence and mood. However, you have to watch out for flattery and compliments that seem to be so excessive and odd. If you receive such compliments excessively, it should alert you to pay close attention to what will most likely come next. Start asking yourself and reflecting on what the person wants to get from you in return. Showers you with gifts and favors. Some manipulators also have this tendency to show you their kindness, generosity, and sympathy even if you just met them for the first time. The next time you meet, expect to be showered with a lot of expensive favors and gifts, causing you to interpret the act as their expression of affection and love. However, you have to find out whether their generosity is indeed genuine. Determine if the gifts and favors you receive are unconditional, meaning the giver is not waiting for you to give them something in return. Ensure that the gifts are not meant to bribe you, so you will grant their larger requests and favors. If someone suddenly showers you with attention and gifts, be more observant and vigilant and try to pay more attention to their real intention and character. Tendency to generalize and exaggerate. Several manipulators are also skilled when it comes to exaggerating and generalizing. For instance, you can hear them saying things such as, "No one seems to care for me and understand me." These manipulators will make use of unclear accusations, making it more difficult to spot any holes in their opinions, statements, or arguments. Makes one feel guilty. Expert manipulators also have the ability to use sympathy and guilt to gain control over anyone. The reason behind this is that most people are prone to feeling guilty. There are even instances when one ends up punishing himself because of the guilty feeling they have. Those who have emotionally manipulative prowess are capable of preying on this natural vulnerability in humans. It is highly likely for them to act as a victim and make you recall certain favors in the past that they did for you. You may then feel obliged or sympathetic, providing the manipulator with more opening to control you and get what they want. Involuntary teaming. This is a tactic utilized by many con artists and manipulators as a means of making their victims feel that there is a need for them to team up. This is the reason why this technique often involves the use of we. If you are the target, expect the person manipulating you to make you feel that both of you share an experience or a purpose, even if in reality there is none. Expect to hear words and phrases like, "We are a team," "We did it," or "How should we handle it?" Observe the constant use of we, which can somewhat solidify the idea that you are indeed a team in your head. Now, how can you distinguish between someone who is manipulating and controlling you using this tactic or one who is just sincerely trying to offer help? It helps to listen intently to what your instinct or intuition is telling you. For instance, if you feel extreme discomfort with the thought of accepting one's help, then it could be an indicator that something is wrong. You may also be facing a manipulator if you feel the need to refuse the offered help, but you have doubts because you are afraid that it will make you look rude. Looks selfless. Most expert manipulators have also mastered the art of hiding their real intentions, desire for domination and power, and goals and ambitions. With that said, you may perceive them as someone who is genuinely helpful and selfless during your initial meetings. Note, though, that these are workings of covert aggressive manipulators. They utilize such a tactic to keep their self-serving interests and agendas hidden and send a disguise that their intention is to serve a noble cause. While this technique is common among manipulators, it is kind of hard to spot and detect. Still, you can recognize them by observing their behaviors intently. Shaming. Some manipulators end up shaming their targets or victims. If someone says hurtful or insulting comments regarding your family, physical appearance, weight, or career, among many others, you should start digging deeply into it as it may indicate that you are dealing with a manipulative person. This is especially true if you hear such hurtful comments too frequently. Note that among the things that a lot of manipulators focus on are the weaknesses and insecurities of their target. They quickly notice your insecurities about your weight, for instance, or a facial feature that you view as your flaw. Repeatedly failing an exam is another trigger for them to start making fun of you. All these are workings of manipulators who may try to cloak their hurtful or offensive remarks as jokes. However, you should start paying more attention to their words and statements. By doing that, you will start realizing that the supposedly joking remarks are not funny at all. Most of these remarks even come with unfriendly overtones. These manipulators are actually secretly trying to make you feel bad about yourself and eventually putting you down. This means that they are trying to use shaming techniques so their target or victim will start feeling unworthy or inadequate. When that happens, They will work on making you submissive to them. This powerful technique can make you develop a sense of inadequacy, making it good for manipulators who are trying to dominate people. How to defend yourself from manipulators and dark psychology users. Learning about the warning signs of manipulation should be the first step you should take in your attempt to defend yourself from manipulators and dark psychology users. By knowing these signs, you will be able to detect right away if someone is using and controlling you. This does not mean that you should let yourself be constantly paranoid, though. What you should do instead is safeguard not only yourself, but also your loved ones from expert manipulators. If you feel like someone is trying to control and manipulate you, rest assured that there are still ways to fight and win over their wicked ways, including the following. Raise your awareness. Start to gain more awareness about dark psychology and manipulation. With that, you can immediately pinpoint manipulators and get a sense of what they are doing to you. In most cases, one's attempt to manipulate you may end up causing you to feel guilty, anxious, furious, annoyed, or pressured. The feelings you develop when dealing with a manipulator may also cause you to be confused and perplexed, since you can't seem to detect why you feel those emotions. If you experience that, consider it as a red flag. It should serve as a warning that you have to start being more cautious now when interacting with people. Ask questions about the things they ask you to do. One fact about manipulators is that if you start challenging their goals and way of thinking, they will also reassess their tactics and even stop using those. It is important to respond in a timely manner, so you will know immediately if someone is on their way toward controlling you. If they are asking you to do something, inquire or ask questions first. However, your questions and inquiries should not sound like you are accusing them. The fact that you are asking questions should already make them realize that you are uncomfortable with what they are doing and that you are willing to defend yourself. Some examples of questions you can ask the manipulator are, will I get something from this? Do you really expect me to do this? Do you think it's fair for me to be the only one doing this? Declare your position. Whenever you feel like someone tries to play mind games or influence you, you should be able to show your confident and firm stance regarding it. Declare your position by telling them that you will no longer interact or connect with them if they keep on using dark techniques. For instance, you can clearly and directly tell your manipulator that you don't work the way they want you to. You can also clearly express how uncomfortable you are with the direction of your interaction. One more thing that you can do is to tell them frankly that you are not fond of how they intend to handle your encounter and the situation. This is a clear indication that they don't have any chance if they are trying to control and influence you. Decide on what to do next. Find out whether you should proceed with the interaction or not. Are you willing to give the person manipulating you the option to use another method of interaction or engagement with you, or do you prefer moving on and leaving the actual situation? In other words, you need to decide if you should continue or stop your connection with the manipulator. Your decision, though, should be based on the way they receive your comment. Reflect on how they respond to the limits and boundaries you set, since the only one who can answer whether to continue the interaction is you. You may also have a hard time breaking the connection if you are dealing with a close relative or colleague. If such is the case, it helps to distance yourself and create a strategic plan that will help you deal with such a person. The ultimate weapon against manipulators: practicing dark psychology yourself. Of course, the ultimate secret to fighting against manipulators and defending yourself from them is to know exactly how dark psychology works. You have to learn the ins and outs of dark psychology and understand how to practice it yourself. Note that depending on what particular situation you are in, a certain dark psychology tactic will be more or less powerful or effective. By gaining a much better understanding of dark psychology, you can prevent yourself from being manipulated. You can even use your knowledge to turn the tables around, making you the manipulator and using their insecurities and weaknesses against them. Here are the specific fields where dark psychology tactics will be deemed useful. Dating. Dark psychology has a lot of principles and tactics that are applicable to dating. No matter what techniques one uses, the goal for using dark psychology in this field will still be the same. That is, obtaining what they want from all their romantic interactions. An effective technique to develop a sense of control and power over someone in this field is to manipulate their feelings and emotions. One example is to learn about their insecurities and play on them. You can do that if you flirt with your target and then suggest the possibility that they may lose their partner anytime. It is also possible to leverage their strong desire to be validated socially by giving them lavish compliments and ignoring their flaws and imperfections. This is what we call love bombing. Regardless of your chosen technique, you have an assurance that dark psychology has plenty of effective tools that will give you strategic and powerful advantages in the dating scene. Social interactions. As you may have already known by now, dark psychology tackles the darkest facets of humans, including manipulating, guilt-tripping, and deception. You can expect these behaviors to manifest naturally in various ways, especially when you develop social interactions and interpersonal relationships. For instance, one may get extremely angry or aggressive when in a heated argument with a relative or romantic partner. Your knowledge of dark psychology will also help you apply this technique in all of your social interactions, so you can also avoid the possibility of being a victim. Competitive business environments. Many also practice dark psychology in business settings and workplaces. You can see this tactic being commonly used in sales and marketing since it usually involves manipulating the emotional responses and reactions of people to gain a competitive edge in the market. A company may even gain a competitive edge and a better chance of increasing their sales if their team uses emotional appeals and persuasive language. The goal here is to encourage certain responses from their target, like disgust, fear, and arousal. Aside from sales and marketing, you will find dark psychology useful when trying to gain strategic dominance in the workplace. For instance, you can use certain negotiation and persuasion techniques to obtain subliminal influence over your target, though you have to make sure that you do not resort to using unscrupulous and dishonest tactics. Politics. Politicians are also known for being the most common users of dark psychology. As a matter of fact, it has already been several centuries since dark psychology was first practiced in politics. The usual uses of dark psychology in the world of politics include forming divisions, brainwashing, exploiting people's vulnerabilities, and playing on the thing they're afraid of. Those who are into politics and are skilled in using dark psychology have already mastered the art of cultivating the us versus them mindset. This further results in conflict and division. Politicians are also skilled in playing on the fears of people and exploiting them based on their vulnerabilities. Their goal for doing that is to garner the vote of the people or persuade them to support their proposed policies. Dark psychology gives you the option to use its tactics for either good or evil, but when it comes to politics, experts of it use it to gain advantage or become even more powerful. Dark psychology techniques, verbal and nonverbal manipulation. As you may have already known by now, manipulation is the key technique used in dark psychology. Manipulation is so common in this field that even those who are not familiar with dark psychology attempt to manipulate others. This is the reason why manipulative tendencies keep on surfacing in almost all kinds of relationships. Anyone can experience it in whatever relationship they have with others. It could be from friends, parents, relatives, and romantic partners. Your boss and colleagues may even possess manipulative tendencies, and they may have already been using those on you without your knowledge. The problem is that it is not that easy to recognize and spot them. There are even instances when manipulation in certain relationships is so effective yet subtle that you may end up doubting how you perceive the entire situation, instead of the motives and actions of the person who is seemingly manipulating you. Gaslighting, which will also be covered in this book, makes it even harder to discern and spot manipulative tactics. Still, you can prevent yourself from falling victim to manipulators if you educate yourself about dark psychology and learn a few psychological and manipulation tactics and games that you can also use against them. What exactly is manipulation? Manipulation occurs when one exercises influence that may harm or endanger people. It compromises manipulative actions and behaviors used by someone to obtain control or influence over the other. It is a kind of psychological aggression compromising behaviors frequently linked to intimate violence. There is a chance that you are being manipulated if one attacks your emotional or mental side to achieve their goals and wants. One who has manipulative tendencies, referred to as the manipulator, attempts to form an imbalance as far as power is concerned. They do it by exploiting their victim with the goal of obtaining power, control, and privileges, among many other benefits. One thing to note about manipulation is that it happens both in casual and close relationships. It is more commonly practiced in tight-knit relationships, though. In general, it attempts to sway one's feelings, emotions, and judgments just so they will end up acting or feeling in a way intended by the manipulator. Expert manipulators already have a few tricks on their sleeves to help them make those things happen. They will use such tricks, including guilt, comparisons, denial, lying, complaints, mind games, feigned innocence or ignorance, and blame to question your rational and logical thinking, thereby boosting the chance of you agreeing to them or submitting to their requests. If you are victimized by manipulators, therefore you will have a hard time spotting and expressing your needs and wants in a healthy and appropriate manner. It helps to become more aware of these manipulative tendencies, whether verbal or nonverbal, so you can protect yourself. Stages of manipulation. Most manipulative tendencies are subtle and undetectable. However, take note that it basically has 4 stages that you have to be aware of and understand. Flattery. This is considered the first stage of manipulation, which involves the manipulator putting on a show or facade that they are helping, caring, and kind. It would seem like they are approaching you to offer genuine help, though in reality, their goal is to trick you into submission. Isolation. In this stage, the manipulator will begin isolating you from the people close to you, including your family and friends. This may happen after they convince you that those close to you do not truly care for you or understand you, and all they want to do is gain control over you instead. In most cases, the manipulator does this to take you away from those whom they believe will also manipulate you. Gaslighting and devaluing. In this stage, the manipulator will likely do things that will confuse you or make you harbor guilt. This may happen once they start telling you how ungrateful you are or how you make them feel sad. When the manipulator reaches this stage, their goal is to create doubt and confusion within themselves. They will prompt you to doubt your decisions and instincts. It is kind of difficult to let yourself go from the control of a manipulator if you reach this stage, so you have to be really keen in reading people to avoid being victimized by abusive and manipulative ones. Violence or fear. This is the last stage of manipulation, which already comes with threats. Your manipulator will put pressure on you and express threats that will hurt or leave you. They do this so they can continue to control you through fear. Verbal manipulation. Words and language hold a lot of power. With words, you can establish closeness and connection with others. You also use words to understand the people around you, gain comfort, and seek help. However, there are also several instances when words have a negative impact. That is when those are used to create distance, hurt others, or develop misunderstandings. It is even possible for words to turn into a kind of psychological and verbal abuse, though. It seems to be cloaked and less subtle when applied to relationships. Despite being masked, the verbal manipulation and abuse will become noticeable eventually as it results in frustration, dissatisfaction, and forced submission. If you want to understand what exactly happens in verbal manipulation, take note that it widely covers different attitudes and behaviors, specifically those that go over threats and insults. In most cases, verbal manipulation even happens surreptitiously. The fact that this form of manipulation often comes from the people you know even your loved ones, make it even harder to recognize and admit. Here are the most commonly used verbal manipulation tactics to help you at least detect immediately whenever someone tries to control and manipulate you. Guilt tripping. This verbal manipulation tactic involves the manipulator making their victim or target feel guilty or responsible for their decision or action. The one who performs guilt tripping will likely use something you did for them before as leverage. This will leave you with no choice but to grant their request. A few verbal examples of guilt tripping are, "You should do this for me. Remember how I helped you get through college? You would not have been able to reach that stage without me. I deserve all the credit. I put in all the effort for this project while you were just assigned to do the easy stuff. It's senseless to throw out a birthday party and invite everyone else if you have no plan to come over." With these examples, it is safe to assume that this verbal manipulation technique reminds you of the things you owe someone. The manipulator may also end up playing the victim, so you will feel even guiltier. Blocking the dialogue. This tactic can be performed by distracting you from the main conflict or problem. In other words, your primary focus will no longer be on the actual problem since your attention will be diverted to another. When someone manipulates you through this technique, expect them to be the one to decide on the topics of communication that are appropriate for both of you. In other words, any topic that they consider sensitive and inappropriate will be blocked by them. This is especially true for topics that they feel will undermine their powerful position in your relationship. If there's a conflict and both parties know about it, it is likely for you, the victim, to be unable to talk about the topic because you are afraid of how the other will react. If you usually feel that way, it could be that someone has indeed made you a target for manipulation. Trivialization, disqualification. In this verbal manipulation technique, you will notice that someone is trying to minimize or discredit your inner world. This means that your ideas and feelings are often invalidated. They usually do this verbally in the form of a joke or criticism, but the ultimate purpose is to downplay or invalidate your inner reality. Whenever you are with the manipulator, you will feel like your emotions, actions, and thoughts are very trivial and insignificant, which makes you perceive them as unworthy of your time and attention. You will be able to read someone who is trying to manipulate you verbally if you notice them trivializing all the things that you suggest or say. There are even instances when you are denied the emotional validation you need to make you stronger and more reinforced. The words that come out of their mouths are usually degrading labels, like you being extremely childish, inexperienced, and sensitive. Hearing such words from people you love and trust is so degrading to the point that you will begin to doubt and question yourself and your own opinions. The worst thing that could happen is you feeling extremely bad for your own thoughts and feelings. You will start believing that every response or reaction you have is inappropriate or wrong. Blatant denial. Another common technique used by verbal manipulators is blatant denial, or the tendency to reject self-responsibility. You will know that someone is using this technique if they seem to be incapable of recognizing their mistakes. They tend to deny their bad behaviors as well as the result of their behaviors and mistakes. In this technique, the manipulator will blatantly reject responsibility and refuse to admit that their words, behaviors, and actions have resulted in dire consequences. Even if the wrong behavior or the mistake is so clear, the manipulator finds a way to rationalize or justify it all the time. However, this denial of responsibility may cause the relationship to cease. Since you were the victim, you will also be vulnerable to the force and pressure of having to carry the weight and burden, which is supposedly shared by the two of you alone. Criticizing and blaming. This involves the use of both guilt and manipulation when attempting to make the other responsible for something. In this tactic, the one manipulating will blame their victim or target for every issue and conflict that occurred in their relationship. There is even the possibility for them to blame and criticize you even for their own life failures and dissatisfactions. This is their way of subduing you or any of their victims. Criticisms may also be used by the manipulator as an instrument to control you. The fact that you receive constant judgments and criticisms may cause you to lose your self-esteem and confidence. If you succumb to the psychological vulnerability brought on by the manipulation, you will likely accept the blame and guilt they try putting on you. Sooner or later, you will end up granting their wishes and submitting to their demands. Passive aggression. Passive aggression is another form of verbal manipulation. In this technique, the manipulator utilizes passive-aggressive behaviors or statements causing distress whenever their behaviors are not compatible with the words that they blurt out. They may also retaliate in case of a perceived offense while staying away from conflict. One situation that shows passive aggression is when one behaves in a way that they are frustrated and upset but they do not communicate such feelings directly. The ability to spot verbal manipulation, like its tactics mentioned here, is a crucial step to curbing and stopping it. This makes it really necessary to observe intently. Watch out for even the smallest indicators that your communication and discussion with someone have already turned out to be your being on the verge of turning into a manipulator victim. Find out whether there are signs that both parties are already going out of their usual assertive paths. Apart from the language and words coming from the mouth of the suspected manipulator, another crucial sign is when the talk or discussion causes new problems and conflicts instead of solving the previous ones. It may also end up increasing dissatisfaction. Once you have confirmed that, it is time to do something to stop it. The reason is that the manipulator may use the conflict as an instrument to gain more benefits from your relationship with them and take advantage of you. Nonverbal manipulation, body language, and facial expressions. There are also several instances when manipulators control their victims without the use of words. This is what we call nonverbal manipulation, which you can detect by reading body language and facial expressions. Now, how can you spot someone who is already manipulating you nonverbally? Watch out for these body language signals and facial expressions. Foot tapping. If you are talking to someone who taps their feet frequently, it could be an indication that they are impatient and annoyed. It is one way for the manipulator to convey such emotions intentionally. You may also notice them beginning to click a pen. When those body signals appear, the victim may be on the verge of feeling guilty. Foot tapping may even make you prone to rushing your decision, which is something that the manipulator would like to achieve. Scratching the chin. Anyone who attempts to manipulate you may also scratch their chin every now and then to demonstrate their poor confidence and uncertainty. They frequently use this technique so you will be forced to submit to their requests. Once you notice that they are uncertain, you may feel the urge to do something for them and on their behalf. Even if you don't like to do it initially, the look of doubt and uncertainty on their faces will push you to give them what they are asking for. Note, though, that there are instances when they just feign such emotions. If you notice that they keep on scratching their chin, even if you are 100% sure that they can do what they are asking you to do, there is a high chance that you are being manipulated. Rapid blinking and prolonged eye contact. The rate of blinks and gaze given to you by someone is an indicator of their internal state. In general, people blink 4 to 5 times every minute. In other words, both eyes have to blink only once every 12 to 15 seconds approximately. If you notice a significantly higher than usual number of blinking, it is highly likely that the person is nervous and maybe tensed as they are trying to manipulate you to be on their side. If they are capable of looking you directly in the eye when talking, there is a chance that they are genuinely paying attention and are interested in you. However, prolonged eye contact should be a cause for concern as it may cause one to feel threatened. Also, be wary when the one you are talking to keeps on breaking eye contact. This means that they often look away. This body signal could mean that they are uncomfortable, distracted, or attempting to hide their real feelings. Rubbing of the neck and hand. You also have to be extra careful when you notice someone continuously rubbing their hands together as they discuss things with you. The reason is that this body language could indicate that they are conveying their dominance, power, hurriedness, and annoyance. A person who experiences stress at the moment may also end up rubbing their neck. You may see this body cue in manipulators who feel kind of stressed and guilty as they are trying to exploit someone. It is also highly likely that you are being manipulated if the neck and hand rubbing is an action that the person does not naturally do. Constant changing of body positions. If you feel like you are being controlled, you may be able to confirm your suspicion by observing the number of times they change the position of their body. A constant shift in body positions could be a way for manipulators to make you believe that they feel uncomfortable. The reason is that it is natural for the mind of humans to detect discomfort in people and offer relief and consolation. With that said, you will be at risk of caving into the demands of someone if you feel like they are uncomfortable due to their constant shifting of positions. Body signals that violate or invade your personal space. Expert manipulators also tend to do their thing by moving into the personal bubble or invading the space of their victim. They usually do this as a means of forming a feigned sense of intimacy. No matter how much you step back or away to gain your own space again, there is still a possibility for them to lean in very close to you. There are even instances when they keep on touching your shoulder or arm to somehow form a bond. If you notice such actions, be more vigilant to ensure that you won't end up falling into the trap of manipulators. You have to gain a thorough understanding of the typical gestures, facial expressions, and body language of people. With that, you will be able to detect with ease if there are deviations or changes in how they naturally behave. Once you notice them departing from their usual behaviors through body language, meaning without saying a word, there is a possibility that you are indeed being manipulated non-verbally. Since you are already knowledgeable about the usual body language signaling manipulation, you can immediately read their real motives and intentions, giving you the chance to escape the situation before you get victimized.
I hope you're enjoying my audiobook so far. It would be a pleasure if you could let me know how you're feeling about this audiobook in the comments section below. We would greatly appreciate it if you could also like this video and subscribe to United Audiobooks to have access to more best-selling audiobooks in the future. Also, please, if you are interested in getting more free audiobooks, please click the first link in the description below. Now, let's carry on with the next chapter.
Emotional manipulation, exploitation, and control. Of course, you have already known by now how manipulation is all about the attempt to gain control over someone or something. Let's say you are using your hands to manipulate something. In that case, you have to put it in a position that will be compatible with your intent. One sample situation is if you are an artist and you decided to turn a piece of clay into pottery. Note, though, that humans are actually more difficult compared to things. The reason is that we are engineered to have our own thought processes. In other words, it is natural for humans to have unique needs, interests, wants, beliefs, and principles. All these guide you as you journey through life. However, despite having your own thoughts and beliefs, you are still not completely immune to manipulators. Now and then you will encounter manipulators who may attempt to control you using your emotions. If you sense someone using and exploiting your emotions to satisfy their self-interests and gain benefits, then you may be under the spell of emotional manipulation. The same is true if your emotions are also utilized to influence your own beliefs and ideals and keep your behaviors under control. Some manipulators use this tactic in case they are desperate to control you but seem to have a hard time doing so physically. Emotional manipulation defined. Emotional manipulation falls under the classification of psychological manipulation. In this technique, the manipulator will look for a way to control your emotions. One frequently performs this through coercion, persuasion, and emotional blackmail. The goal is to exploit, influence, or control someone emotionally to gain an advantage. Emotional manipulation is common in almost all kinds of relationships. This type of manipulation may exist as a kind of abuse on its own. However, there are also instances when it is practiced together with other types of abuse. It could be physical, spiritual, and psychological abuse. Note, though, that it is also kind of difficult to identify the presence of emotional manipulation since a part of its primary purpose or goal is to keep on making the power dynamics uneven. The entire tactic sounds malicious, but note that it is not entirely produced by conscious thoughts. There are instances when emotional manipulation becomes second nature, habitual, or ingrained, resulting from an adverse experience or previous trauma, especially one from your childhood. Those who went through abuse before are also at risk of developing manipulative tendencies and behaviors. The reason behind this is that the ones who abused them in the past may have punished them every time they attempt to express and demonstrate their wants and needs directly and healthily. Some act manipulative as they came from households where all forms of manipulations are routine behaviors. This prevented them from learning other healthy and rational ways to express and communicate their thoughts and feelings. Regardless of the reason for the behavior, you can often see emotional manipulation being practiced in toxic and abusive relationships. Note, though, that while this form of manipulation when applied in relationships occurs on a spectrum, you can't expect it to hold malicious intent all the time. Also note that the abuse may either be overt or covert. For instance, let's say that a boss gave positive feedback to one of their employees. This form of feedback is often given to reinforce good behaviors positively and encourage employees to keep on practicing such good behavior. In this case, the boss is encouraging the employee to keep on exhibiting positive behaviors. This shows that there is no malicious intent in this scenario. How to sense if you are being emotionally manipulated. Now, how will you know if someone has already been using your emotions to control and manipulate you? Watch out for the following signs and behaviors so you can act right away in case you are being subjected to emotional manipulation. Keeps what we call the home court advantage. Are you presently on your turf, such as your own home or a certain place that you consider your safe haven? Then you will surely feel empowered. If that is the case, you have to be cautious whenever someone keeps on insisting that you should only meet in their place. The reason is that it could indicate their attempt to form an unevenness or imbalance in power. Since you are in their safe place, expect them to claim that they are the owner of such. This will leave you with nothing except being at a disadvantage. A couple of examples that indicate that you are being manipulated emotionally are the following. I really have a hectic schedule tonight, so I can't go with you. Pay me a visit at the office instead. You already know that it is a far drive from my home. If you want, you can come here tonight. Capable of building a close relationship with someone fast. In other words, emotional manipulators will likely skip several steps in the usual get-to-know-you stage. In fact, even if you just met, they can share the secrets, vulnerabilities, and weaknesses they try to conceal from anyone else. Note, though, that this move is often feigned. The truth is they are telling you their secrets so you will feel special. This may prompt you to open up about your secrets and a few sensitivities. The problem with this is that the manipulators may use such information against you sooner or later. Allows you to talk first. You can often see this famous technique being used in business relationships. Note, though, that different personalities may also experience it. If someone who intends to gain control approaches you, it is possible for them to ask probing questions as a start. This may result in you sharing your thoughts and concerns early on. One crucial reminder is that the manipulator here often has a hidden agenda. In most cases, the answers they gathered from you may be used soon to manipulate your behaviors and decisions. Twists facts. Those who are into emotional manipulation have already mastered the art of changing or altering reality through misstatements, lies, and fibs. They frequently do this to trigger confusion. These manipulators tend to exaggerate certain occasions and events so they will be the ones who will look more vulnerable. It is also likely for them to understate the roles contributed by them in a conflict, so they can keep on gaining sympathy. Here are a couple of instances when this indicator of emotional manipulation is being used. I tried to ask her about this particular project, but I ended up being yelled at for not contributing anything to it. I'm sure you were aware of my contributions, right? I cried the entire night. I did not even sleep well because of this situation. Bullies intellectually. There is also a chance that someone is emotionally manipulating you if you feel like you are being bullied intellectually. You are being subjected to intellectual bullying if one tends to overwhelm you with a lot of facts, complex jargon, and statistics when you are talking to them or asking a question. One reason why manipulators do this is that they would like those around them to look at them as experts. With that, expect them to impose what they know on you. This kind of manipulation is frequently seen in sales and financial situations. Let's say you are still a beginner in a particular field. In such a case, someone may tell you that their expectations of you are not that high because you, being a beginner, means that you can't comprehend everything yet. It could also be that they are telling you how they need to explain things to you more slowly and thoroughly because it involves a lot of figures and data. If a supposed expert keeps on telling you those things, you may end up feeling like you know nothing, which could eventually hamper your confidence. Makes you feel guilty and sorry every time you express your concerns. Emotional manipulators also have the ability to respond to your suggestions, questions, and concerns aggressively. Every time you voice out your concerns, you may end up feeling bad and sorry since there is a high chance that it will lead to conflicts and arguments. In most cases, manipulators perform this technique so they will have a significant influence and control over your decisions and choices. It is also possible for them to use the situation you are in to feel really guilty that you expressed your concerns and opinions in the first place. Silent treatment. Some manipulators also end up giving you the silent treatment or the cold shoulder. They would not respond to your emails, calls, inquiries, and text messages even if all those are within reason. What they do is make you wait and put uncertainty and doubt in your mind, so they can presume and show their power. They use silence as their leverage, and while there are times when it is right to request time and space, the use of silent treatment to punish you is considered manipulative. Uses negative humor. Someone is also using your emotions to keep on manipulating you if they frequently give critical comments and remarks that they frequently disguise in the form of sarcasm and humor. This action aims to make you feel less secure, thereby leading to you feeling so inferior. Some example comments where negative humor is being applied are those that tend to degrade your physical appearance, the things you own, like an old model smartphone, as well as your credentials and background. The goal of your manipulator here is to make you look and feel bad so they can keep on showcasing their psychological superiority. Emotional manipulation techniques. Now that you know a few indicators of being manipulated emotionally, it is time for you to learn about the specific tactics used by manipulators in this aspect. Basically, your emotions are the ones that are primarily being played here. In general, emotional manipulation makes use of a kind of behavior revolving around overt and subtle techniques to influence and control not only your emotions, but also your behaviors and thoughts. Again, it is kind of hard to spot and detect while having the ability to cause the victim extreme emotional harm in the long term. This is why you really have to equip yourself with the most relevant information regarding the most commonly used emotional manipulation tactics. This knowledge will serve as your protection from these atrocious manipulators. Among the tactics used by emotional manipulators are those that revolve around hurtful comparisons, denial of facts, and lying. Silence, exaggeration, and withholding of crucial and valuable items and details also fall under manipulative tendencies. All these tactics and behaviors have detrimental effects on your emotional and mental safety, so you should start being more vigilant. Love bombing and idealization. Love bombing refers to a manipulative tactic, which involves supplying the victim with excessive attention. If you are the target or victim, It is highly likely that you are frequently being inappropriately showered not only with material gifts but also with time, affection, and compliments or flattery. While these gifts are wonderful, they are also very confusing. It is already called love bombing when the giving of gifts ends up feeling so enrapturing. You will feel like it is already excessive and gets all of your attention. You may feel incredible upon being showered with both material and non-material gifts at first, but eventually, it often makes you feel isolated. This makes you even prone to losing sight of your real self. The problem is that if you end up being swept away by the gifts and gestures, you may notice the attention suddenly stopping or dwindling out. The result is you feeling like it is you who chases and searches for it. Love bombing is actually one of the most commonly used manipulation tools by those who have a narcissistic personality disorder. The reason is that it commands your attention once you start isolating yourself not only from your loved ones, but also from your life goals. If you feel like you are being victimized by love bombing, then make sure to exercise patience with yourself. Work on forgiving yourself too. Be aware that you can also prevent love bombing in the first place if you spend quality time with your loved ones regularly. Make sure that you also engage in your unique passion and interests that do not include the supposed manipulator. One more thing that you should do is to check in with and reflect on yourself often. By doing that, you have an assurance that you will continuously be aligned with your own set standards and values. Gaslighting. Another insidious means of manipulating anyone emotionally is gaslighting. It is insidious and deceptive in the sense that it eventually causes you to eventually doubt your supposed to be unique and confidential perceptions and experiences. There is a possibility for the manipulator to convince you about how untruthful something is while also acting that they feel wrong or crazy for believing it was real. Basically, gaslighting may cause you to start questioning and doubting the reality you know, since the manipulator will most likely lie, deny statements they have already said before, or use your words against you. Eventually, this will cause you to develop doubt and uncertainty. You will also start second-guessing the experiences, even if you have memories of them. The fact that they are experts in distorting or denying reality may result in you truly doubting your memories and your supposedly unique perceptions of things. The abuser or manipulator may also do the following. Keep on complaining that you did or said something you should not have. Deny the occurrence of an event. Question the memory you had regarding events and facts. Feign lack of understanding on what is being fed to you or refusing to hear you. Deny all statements and promises delivered earlier. By denying your own reality, there is a high possibility that the manipulator will start imposing their own version of the reality. With that, the victim may end up being deeply frustrated and confused, resulting in you over-relying on the version of the reality of the manipulator. Projection. In this technique, the manipulator will project their subjective experiences on you. This means that instead of directly dealing with what is bad and unfavorable in them directly, they do so indirectly with you acting as the projector screen for them. Another situation where projection may take place is when there is a feeling of guilt in the manipulator because of something they regularly do. Rather than handling their guilt on their own, there is a risk for them to project this feeling to you, which is their victim. There's even a possibility that they will turn the blame on you by saying that the manipulator is actually you. This may cause you to feel quite guilty. A person who uses projection to manipulate others and be in control may also use this technique to deal with other negative emotions, such as jealousy. Blaming is also common in projection, which can be characterized by you feeling responsible for the situation because that is what the manipulator projects and ingrains within you. Emotional blackmail. There is also what we call emotional blackmail. This form of emotional manipulation excessively uses your feelings to keep your behaviors under the control of the manipulator. This will also serve as a motivator to view and perceive things in a different light. Similar to the usual blackmail, emotional blackmail is all about someone attempting hard to obtain what they desperately wish to receive from you. However, rather than holding secrets that they can use against you, you can expect them to manipulate or control you using your emotions. Exploiting your insecurities and weaknesses. If someone is aware of your secret insecurity regarding a specific aspect of yourself, expect them to highlight it. Ultimately, the goal of telling everyone about your insecurities and highlighting them is that they may stimulate someone to persuade you to do something. Note that the constant use of this technique against you is an indication of emotional manipulation. They may also repeatedly and deliberately embarrass you, which is another way of manipulating and playing with your emotions. The result is you developing shame because of your exploitation of your insecurities and weaknesses that can ultimately lead to a major blow to your behavior. How to handle emotional manipulation. Again, you should remind yourself of how sneaky emotional manipulation is. Still, you can rest assured that you can handle this with the help of the following tips. Be fully aware of the signs. Note that the manipulators commonly demonstrate the same kinds of behavior. Be wary of those who seem to be overly and excessively friendly, as well as those who constantly make false and empty promises. Observe your own feelings and emotions. You can also fight emotional manipulation by gaining full awareness of your own feelings and emotions. One reminder is that your tendency to evoke intense or strong emotions may put you at the center of the majority of manipulation methods. The reason is that manipulators are experts in playing with emotions, but with your awareness of your own feelings, you can prevent them from controlling you. Do not personalize. Yes, being emotionally manipulated may make you feel hurt. However, even with the pain associated with this act, you should still internalize and reflect on the fact that such behavior does not do anything with you. It is the other way around instead. This means that there is more on the manipulator as well as their lack of capacity to satisfy their needs healthily. Listen intently. You can also handle emotional manipulators through intent and active listening. Being emotionally manipulated does not feel good, but confronting them in the most excessive way possible may only aggravate the situation. Try to listen closely with empathy, so you will be able to see their wants and needs. Respect boundaries. Once you have finished hearing what the other person is saying and you detected that someone is trying to manipulate you, be very careful to keep your limits and boundaries in check. It should be at a healthy level. Note that your decision to respectfully and assertively respond to the manipulation may cause them to perceive you as someone immune to your tactics. With that, they will most likely stop manipulating you and try to look for other victims fast indeed. Talk to a trusted loved one. Remember that the whole process of knowing that you are being manipulative can be hurtful and emotionally draining. With that, you should make it a point to build a strong support system. Talk to your loved ones, especially those you trust, regarding your experience. The fact that you are talking about it will help you go through the healing process fast. Make sure that you also remain calm. It is necessary to keep yourself under control and avoid losing your cool as you deal with manipulators. Do not allow them to affect you excessively or cause you to get too nervous. By doing that, your chance of beating them will grow exponentially high. Cognitive manipulation and mind control. Dark psychology also encompasses techniques and methods for cognitive manipulation and mind control. It utilizes concepts like manipulation, coercion, and control to benefit the manipulator while endangering and limiting the power and freedom of the target or victim. It makes use of the art of manipulation, which also involves exploiting your cognitive biases to bend your mind in accordance with the will of the manipulator. But what are actually the techniques used by master manipulators to control your mind and exploit your cognitive biases? You will learn and understand that in this chapter. Cognitive bias and how to exploit it. Cognitive biases refers to a systematic error in the way you think, which can significantly impact your judgment and decision. It is innate in humans to have cognitive biases that greatly influence their opinions and judgments. The effect is so significant even if you consider yourself one of the most reasonable and rational people. Cognitive bias is known to be very precious, especially in the business world, which is why a lot of cunning and scheming manipulators and strategists are waiting for their chance to exploit it. Manipulators end up exploiting such biases so they can receive selective details or frame some situations in such a way that they become in line with their preconceived notions of people. This can make the manipulators appear more reliable. Learning about cognitive biases and understanding how to exploit it can benefit different areas of your life. For one, it can ensure that you will not get victimized even by master manipulators who are trying to exploit your biases and control your mind. Being knowledgeable in this field also allows you to use cognitive biases of others to your advantage, though you have to make sure that you won't end up abusing this ability. You can use it to become an effective and reasonable manipulator, which will be a big help in swaying thoughts and opinions, keeping the outcome or result of certain negotiations under your control, and facilitating and orchestrating strategic actions that will guarantee your success in various areas of your life, especially if you are in the world of business. So how can one manipulate cognitive biases? The manipulation is possible by learning about the different kinds of biases, including the following. Confirmation. Confirmation bias is all about feeding one's ego. Basically, it is the innate desire of humans to look for, remember, and intercept certain details and information capable of confirming the beliefs and principles that one already has. Exploiting this bias is possible if you feed the ego of your opponent using details and information that are supportive and in line with their views and beliefs. Expect them to feel good as they will think that they have found an ally whose beliefs and views are the same as theirs, while remaining unaware that what you are actually doing is tightening your hold on their delicate and fragile psyche. If you want to exploit this bias, it would help to determine the beliefs, assumptions, and opinions of your target first. You should then prepare data, expert opinions, and anecdotes that you can present to them. Ensure that all these details validate the convictions of your target. The goal is to make them feel how confident you are in their convictions and views and how your beliefs are the same. With that, it is highly likely that they will become more prone to your control and influence. One example is when your target believes that a specific marketing technique is what will make your business successful. What you should do is agree with them. You should then give them additional pieces of evidence that will make their belief even stronger. After seeing that their convictions are already firm, it is time for you to begin controlling the strategy's direction subtly so it will start serving your goals and interests. Anchoring. This particular form of cognitive bias will help you set the mood for proper negotiation. When this tactic for exploiting cognitive bias is used, expect people to depend too much on the information that they receive first, which they consider the anchor, in terms of formulating decisions. You can also use this particular technique to get your desired results. For instance, if you wish to get a favorable deal, make it a point to develop an anchor that is high enough that you can observe your target struggling to make negotiations around the heightened figure that you ingrained in their mind. Exploit this cognitive bias in your business negotiations. For instance, you should set your terms in a particular price that can benefit you first. This should help you form an anchor, which can influence the remaining parts of your negotiation. You may also supply them with an unrelated detail, which should act as the anchor. This should serve as a subtle guide in the decision-making process of your target. Sunk cost fallacy. In this cognitive bias, your goal is to trap your target in the investments that they make. Basically, it works under the premise that one should keep on making investments in something depending on the exact number of resources that were invested already, instead of objectively analyzing the present situation. To exploit this bias and gain the result you want, you should persuade your target to invest more money and time into a certain project. Putting substantial investments into it makes it harder for them to walk out of the project. This is true even if the chance for them obtaining their desired results is low. You should, therefore, aim to increase one's level of commitment to a particular project. That way, they will keep on investing and putting their effort into it no matter what. It is possible for you to continue being in control if you keep on capitalizing on their refusal to accept defeat. For instance, you can encourage someone to place a substantial investment in a partnership. As they keep on growing their investment, there is a slim chance that they will back out. Leverage this kind of commitment so you can have better terms as you negotiate or make the other party accept an outcome that is less favorable to them but fruitful to you. The basics of mind control. Learning how to control the mind of others also contributes to making you more adept at practicing dark psychology and manipulation. The relevance of mind control at the present can be likened to how relevant it was back then in the 1950s. At that time, mind control is also classified as brainwashing. It was the time when the Korean War was still ongoing, and those in Chinese prison camps made use of mind control or brainwashing to ensure that they wouldn't be defeated by the American troops. In general, this concept takes place every time you utilize an external force while deliberately aiming to control how one behaves, acts, and thinks. You may be able to do it either physically or psychologically. It frequently requires you to break down the subject with the goal of gaining full control over them. Initially, you may believe that controlling the mind is not doable and possible. Note, though, that unconsciously it may have already been part of your daily life. It could be that you are already doing it as you promote your products or services or show your media bias when you talk about politics. The following are just some of the most common ways where you can see mind control being put into practice. Isolation. Do you find yourself slowly detaching and isolating from your loved ones? Then the reason could be that someone is subjecting you to mind control. You may have also been doing this to others. It happens when one tells the other about the flaws and imperfections of those around them. This is so you can be brainwashed into thinking that being with them is not good. The result is you slowly dissociating yourself from your loved ones. This is what the manipulator wants, to keep you vulnerable and alone, so you will end up having a broken spirit. Moodiness. One may also manipulate or control the mind of others through their mood or behaviors. For instance, you can see your partner sulking if you do not grant his or her request. It could also be that you are doing this technique to control those around you, too. For instance, you have this tendency to alter your behavior and the way you respond to others if you want to prevent or stop a conflict or argument. This signifies the beginning of mind control since you are starting to change your actions due to the things that the other party is also doing. Metacommunication. In this particular mind control technique, the manipulator provides subtle hints and clues with the help of nonverbal signals. One example is when you tell someone who is asking you whether or not you are fine with a yes, but your body signals indicate that you are far from fine. It could be that you accompany your positive response with an obvious sigh. You may have also said, "Yes, I'm fine," but you are shrugging your shoulders. These body cues indicate that in reality, you are not okay. Overall, metacommunication works for anyone who aims to make their target form subliminal thoughts. Neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP for short. NLP involves the use of language to layer specific thoughts into the unconscious mind of your target without making them know about it. It is crucial to note that this popular technique for mind control and manipulation gives a closer and clearer look at the number of areas in a person's life. It also requires the use of language as a means of planting suggestions. Let's say, for example, that you have a visually oriented target. In this case, you will have to speak to them with the help of a language which utilizes visual cues like, "Can you clearly see the actual meaning of what I said?" Those who are more adept in using auditory cues should be able to receive hearing language, such as, "I hear you loud and clear." Rules that can't be compromised. If you need to follow the rules of someone close to you, like your partner, even those that are unreasonable, and without you getting the chance to compromise, then you are subject to mind control. These rules may include having to adhere to unreasonable deadlines, zero access to your friends' or own funds, and strict regulations during bathroom breaks and meal times. You may have been controlled mentally in this case, as they tend to stop you from making decisions as you will just need to follow strictly certain behaviors. With that, you will notice yourself stopping to think for yourself. This may also result in them having an easier time implanting their own unique developments and agenda. Deception. Deception is also another method used by manipulators in controlling the minds of their victims successfully. In general, the act of deceiving could be minor, huge, or cruel. Regardless of how severe the deception is, the goal is the same. That is, urging someone to believe things that are false and untrue. One key point here is that no matter how honest a person is, they may still be tempted to use deception against others. In other words, even honest people get frequently involved in deception. In fact, it is possible for one person to lie several times daily. In most cases, though, those are minor white lies that they often express to avoid uncomfortable scenarios and lower the risk of offending someone. Reverse psychology. Another method which is currently being used now to control other people is what we call reverse psychology. This is being used to attain their unique goals and ensure that they get and receive what they truly want. Even those who are still unfamiliar with reverse psychology may have already witnessed someone doing this technique. One thing that makes reverse psychology so popular in the field of mind control is that sometimes one can't easily detect that it is already happening to them. This makes it all the more important to obtain an understanding of the way this specific strategy works. When you take a look at reverse psychology closely, you will realize that its definition is a bit confusing. Note, though, that if you seriously scrutinize the definition, everything will start making sense. In reverse psychology, you are attempting to make your target perform what you wish them to do by requesting to them that you should do the exact opposite of it. Many consider reverse psychology as a really effective tool and technique in manipulation and mind control. The reason is that it no longer requires you to communicate your wants and wishes directly. What you do is conceal them and ask for the opposite instead. The moment you practice reverse psychology, you will have to use words indicating what you wish the other party should do despite the fact that your actual objective is to ask them to do the opposite. Reading people. When it comes to understanding mind control and manipulation, a solid knowledge of how to read the minds of the people around you can help a lot. One crucial fact about human beings is that each one holds a unique psychological and emotional makeup. With that in mind, it is possible for you to manipulate each one for a different purpose. If you wish to manipulate or control the mind of someone, you should take time to study your target before you begin doing your most recent manipulation scheme. The goal here is to gain an understanding of the specific things that they find favorable. This is important if you want to find the perfect approach to make your target bend based on your wishes and needs. As you attempt to read people, here are the things you may discover. It is possible to play with their emotions. Several people are more prone to showcasing visible emotional responses. They are the ones who are also emotional and tend to possess a strong and high level of empathy and sympathy. Get what you want from them by playing to their emotions up to the time when they start feeling apologetic for you and surrender to their demands. You can take advantage of their guilt. You also get to manipulate the minds of people by using their strong guilt reflex. Several people were actually born in a household with restrictions. In fact, some of them end up getting punished for things that they did in the past, even minor ones. For anyone who has a childhood like that, it is possible for them to feel guilty almost all the time. If you are dealing with such people, then what you can do to them is obvious. That is taking advantage of their guilt. You have to make them harbor guilt because of not giving in to your demands. You can implement the rational approach. The reason is that several people tend to receive the rational approach more. In case you have a logically minded friend who always seems to read the news and requires pieces of evidence and facts before the decision-making process, then it is highly recommended that you utilize calm persuasion as a means of making them agree with you. With all these pieces of knowledge and important information, You will be able to master the act of reading people and practice manipulation and dark psychology using what's inside the minds of your target. This knowledge will also serve as your shield in case someone does this to you. Covert hypnosis and NLP. How to use it to persuade and manipulate others. Covert hypnosis and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, are among the most frequently used strategies in the world of persuasion and manipulation. In fact, you can see both being used by people who want to get something from others. They may have been doing this as part of their persuasion or manipulation approaches consciously. There are also cases when it is done unconsciously or consciously, as part of their habits, making it quite hard to change. Now the question is whether or not you want to be more adept when it comes to covert hypnosis and NLP. You may also want to know the ins and outs of how they work. If that is the case, use this ebook as your guide. How does NLP work? Hypnosis and NLP actually work differently, although there are cases when people use the two together to achieve the specific results they are aiming for. Basically, NLP makes use of technologies that have a fair share of conscious and unconscious participation. It is basically a form of cognitive psychological art. The idea behind the way NLP works is how neurological processes, learned language, and behavioral patterns are tightly connected with each other. This detected connection is one reason why many keep on studying the workings of the mind and how to use neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, to alter the way people think and behave as well as reach their ultimate goals. One thing that NLP can do is serve a creative and innovative approach that is applicable in various fronts, namely communication, psychotherapy, and personal development. Here, you will learn a few practical language skills that will surely be of help in enhancing the way you communicate with others and improve your mind or mental state. NLP and covert hypnosis. One thing that was discovered about NLP is that it is actually a form of covert and direct hypnosis. It is covert in the sense that a lot of people who perform NLP are actually unaware that they are practicing it along with hypnosis. In fact, modern hypnotherapy's grandfather, Milton H. Erickson, contributed greatly to developing NLP. So basically, there is what we call covert NLP in hypnosis, which takes place when your goal is to acquire something from anyone who may be unwilling to give such a thing. Despite the unwillingness, you still attempt to get whatever it is you want, but without putting too much pressure and strength. What you will be using here would be your language skills, the one that will work in persuading others and sometimes controlling their mind and manipulating them to go on your side. Now, another important question is why do experts classify this technique as hypnotic language? The reason is that each time words come out of your mouth with the goal of influencing or persuading someone, covert NLP is already in practice. It is different from overt, which is a more suitable method to gaining what you want if your target already has deep trust and respect in you, or if they already perceive you as someone with authority. The covert approach is more applicable in several situations where persuasion and influence are necessary, since only a few have supreme credibility and authority that those around them will already trust them the first time they meet. Covert is more general since most, if not all, are trying to convince people to do something even if they are still unaware of who they are talking to. With the help of hidden language brought on to you by covert NLP and hypnosis, you can somewhat bypass any inadequacy in social trust and proof that you do not own yet. In other words, the use of covert NLP or hypnosis language will help you develop a kind of influence that those around you may find as trustworthy. How to use covert hypnosis and NLP. Now let's learn a couple of techniques that will help you use this concept in the world of manipulation, persuasion, and mind control. A viable rule to remember is to be respectful of people's limitations. By practicing this kind of respect, you will find it easier to hypnotize them in a covert manner. For instance, let's say that you are utilizing specific hypnotic phrases while aiming to persuade someone to succumb to change during therapy. You may use words and phrases like, "I'm wondering if it would really be easy for you to overcome your fear today," or Do you think it's more fun and fulfilling to envision yourself having a high level of confidence in everything you do? Make sure that your target does not end up feeling like your attention to them is only brief and fleeting, since your goal is to wait for an opportunity to use hypnotic language. The reason is that you may miss your chance to persuade and influence them if they feel that way. Also, take note that if those around you resist the kind of change you wish to produce within, it could be that you did not get their complete trust yet, or they are still afraid to alter their limitations. You have a better chance of succeeding if you empathize with them or appreciate their limitations and fears. You should show them that behavior even if you feel like their arguments and reasons for their inability to change are nonsense and stupid. Appreciate and respect them and tell them how much you understand their thoughts and behaviors. This should help you earn their trust, which will pave the way for you to begin using hypnotic stories or commands and use their subconscious mind as your target. Your goal should be to establish trust and credibility to prevent your target from resisting whatever you tell them. You no longer have to worry about them searching for counter-arguments just so they can dispute the words you say to them. There is also a better chance for you to succeed in using covert NLP and hypnosis with these tactics. Use questions to hide or conceal any persuasive language. One fact about questions is that they tend to have more power over plain statements. Note that statements aim to assert or emphasize a truth. That is regardless if your target believes you or not. Meanwhile, questions compel your target indirectly to search for viable reasons within themselves that will help them believe in what you are saying. The good news is that there are several effective ways for you to utilize covert NLP questions when it comes to persuasion. The easiest and simplest one, though, involves the commitment to ask 2 questions prior to changing where the thoughts of your targets go. For example, if you are trying to debate which one is better between a vegan diet and a meal-based one, you should consider raising a couple of soft questions rather than just telling your subject that the best option is the vegan diet and any other diet plan is wrong. The 2 questions you may ask are the following. May I ask you for your source as to why you think meat is beneficial? That's good to hear. Do you have information as to where the scientist you mentioned performed this research and studies on the positive effects of meat? The soft questions we are talking about here should not attack one's belief. Your goal for raising such questions is to make them understand the subject better. After listening intently and carefully to the provided answers, you will have an idea of how you should alter their thoughts' direction through hypnotic language. For example, you can reiterate how interesting their perspective is despite the fact that your opinion is a bit different. You can then move on to saying politely that you are willing to expose them and show a few facts that may cause them to reconsider their position a bit. If they agree, you can start presenting the facts with the end goal of altering or changing their position after. This particular example shows how useful pacing and leading are in changing one's opinion and position on certain things. It also utilizes a post-hypnotic suggestion, which is further emphasized by the use of after, a temporal predicate. Disguise the language in accordance with their preference. This can significantly help you, especially if you are still attempting to earn the trust of someone you know mainly because the two of you are unfamiliar with each other. In that case, a good starting point would be letting them hear whatever it is that they want. To start, explain the reason why you have the same opinion and position as them. It also helps to refer to a few stories that emphasize your respect for those who have similar views as them and who talk like them. If you are talking to someone whose overall mood and personality are excited and extremely energetic, then you have to try matching this energy. For those who are kind of slow, causing them to take more time than usual before they can provide their answer, slowing down to match their pace is also a must. During the start of your talks and conversations, consider yourself as their mirror. In other words, it is highly recommended to talk to them depending on the exact things they intend to hear from you. Once you notice that you have already earned their trust and they start treating you as a friend, you can begin to use hypnotic stories and language designed to make them have a drastic change of mind. Reduce the use of indirect language. After noticing that they already start following you and listening to your opinions, you can lessen the number of times you use indirect language. Keep in mind that indirect persuasion becomes necessary only when a sort of resistance, fear, or anger is seen against the beliefs and ideas you want to present to them and make them believe. Observe intently, so you will be able to sense right away once they begin to agree on your position too, and enjoy your discussions. If they begin to look at you more intently with wide and curious eyes, you can stop playing the game gradually. The goal is to solidify your position since there is a chance that they are already on your side. In this case, you can begin using commanding and assertive language. Some powerful and authoritative phrases you can use in this case are, "You can agree with me now because of this particular reason," or, "I am aware of what is good for you, so I would like to tell you that this." Aside from a couple of tactics for using covert NLP and hypnosis already mentioned here, you should also avoid the common mistakes of those who are starting to use NLP. That is their seeming tendency to build rapport forever. Note that once you have already established rapport, you do not have to cultivate it more. Begin to be more authoritative and assertive with your suggestions and commands when you reach this stage. This way, you can take advantage of the innate ability of humans to change rapidly and agree with you. Subliminal persuasion techniques. How to use it to persuade others to be on your side. Finally, we are at the last chapter of this book. Here, you will get introduced to another effective technique for persuasion and manipulation: subliminal persuasion. Basically, this whole technique requires you to use messages with real meanings that you have to cloak or hide so you can gain control and influence on the behaviors and thoughts of your target. The messages used here take advantage of visuals, like words and pictures, with the ultimate goal of evoking emotions. Many practitioners of subliminal persuasion say that it is so effective that it makes them feel like they possess some sort of a superpower. The reason is that it truly works as far as persuading others to be on your side is concerned. What are the different subliminal persuasion techniques? The word subliminal, especially when used in the world of persuasion, manipulation, and dark psychology, corresponds to beneath consciousness. In other words, subliminal persuasion is all about influencing and controlling someone at a certain level that is below their perception when they are conscious. This technique also affects people beyond words, as its strength is behind or beneath the words that come out of your mouth. Subliminal persuasion is so powerful that you can see it being used in the field of advertising. You can also apply it in other areas of your life where you think persuasion and manipulation will be of use. To start using subliminal persuasion, here are just a few of many tactics and techniques that will surely help you take full advantage of the concept. Framing. One subliminal technique that is effective and applicable in almost all situations is framing. In this technique, you will have to word something in such a way that it can change or influence the decision of a person. Let's say you were selling a table. In this case, you should not directly ask your prospective customer if they intend to buy a table from you. It would be best to reframe your question instead by asking what they prefer between 2 to 3 types of tables that you are selling. Example, do you want this wooden table or this glass table? The reframed question is more persuasive as it already holds an assumption that the person you are talking to has already decided to buy a table and is already in the stage of choosing which type. This will further influence him to buy from you. Mirroring. In this technique, you will have to mimic or follow one's body language. Note, though, that mirroring does not just encompass actions. You can also implement it using words and language. In this case, you can use the specific words used by someone as well as their accent. This form of mirroring falls under the subliminal persuasion technique, which many consider very powerful and effective. Also take note that mirroring the posture, gesture, and language of someone works effectively when it comes to building rapport. This ultimately aims to demonstrate that both parties are on the same level, which means you can easily grasp and understand everything they tell you. With that, they will surely feel more comfortable with you, so expect them to open up with worries. Just make sure that when mirroring, you don't end up becoming too obvious that they will immediately catch what you are doing. Inflections and intonations. Subliminal persuasion also allows you to use what we call inflections and intonations. Note that your words will affect and influence people the way you want to with the help of the right volume, inflection, intonation, and intensity of voice. If you are still unfamiliar with inflection, then be aware that it happens when your voice tends to rise and fall gently as you speak a syllable or word. Meanwhile, intonation happens when your pitch either rises or falls within a sentence or phrase. Take advantage of both inflection and intonation by carefully using them on specific words to persuade and influence people. For instance, speak to them in a whisper. It should be as if you are genuinely willing to share a secret with them. Example, I'm willing to give you a 20% discount on this item, but promise me you will not let anyone know about it. Can I count on you to keep this between us? This will make them feel special and valued since you are sharing a secret with them. You can show them that you have confidence in them, which boosts your chance of cultivating rapport and earning their trust. This will serve as your instrument to influence them to do the act that you intend them to do. Hypermnesia. In this particular subliminal persuasion technique, you will have to influence and persuade those around you to be reminded of the things you wish them to recall all the time. Here, you will need to use a few memory words and tricks to increase their chance of remembering something. One example is telling them that they will be unable to forget how incredible your product is. You may also use the following powerful phrases when attempting to implement hypermnesia. It is not possible to forget. You can't remove this from your mind. You will remember this forever. Irresistible suggestions. This technique requires you to set expectations designed to condition the mind of the people you are dealing with. Once you have done that, the mind will work on confirming the suggestion. As an example, you can tell someone how they will love a particular item. Deliver this message sincerely and ensure that you inject genuine enthusiasm into it, so the receiver will really believe it. This can make this subliminal persuasion technique successful. Frequent nodding. If there is a favor that you wish to ask someone, nodding frequently as you talk can help. Note that nodding while talking and listening to someone increases the likelihood of reaching a mutual agreement. Also, it was discovered that frequent nodding in front of someone can also result in them mimicking the act. You can even expect this to happen naturally, as humans are known for their innate ability to mimic behaviors, specifically those with positive meanings. With that in mind, if you wish to persuade or convince someone to do something, you should consider nodding regularly throughout the entire conversation. This will also prompt them to begin agreeing with you in the things you say unconsciously. Ethical considerations. I'm sure that by now you are already aware that there are several instances when subliminal persuasion utilizes techniques that aim to influence and persuade others without them knowing about it. This is the reason why it somewhat raises substantial ethical concerns. Now, are you really interested in using subliminal persuasion as well as the other dark psychology techniques indicated in this book, but are worried about how you can do it while conforming to ethics? If you answered yes, then be prepared to research and understand important ethical considerations in dark psychology that you should never neglect. Practice the techniques here in such a way that you are not endangering anyone. So here are the primary ethical considerations you should keep in mind as you practice dark psychology and subliminal persuasion. Harm. In general, dark psychology techniques, including subliminal persuasion, may put someone in grave danger if you are not careful in implementing them. One possible effect of it would be psychological and emotional trauma. Think about this possible effect before you ever practice dark psychology. Note that you can persuade or manipulate someone, but ensure that you still think of their overall well-being. Consent. As much as possible, use the techniques associated with dark psychology with the consent of someone. Note that the use of such tactics without their consent may violate their dignity and autonomy. With that said, you should work on obtaining informed and reasonable consent from your target before you put them under extreme psychological manipulation. Professional standards. If you are working in the psychology industry, then you are probably aware of how dark psychology techniques are in line with the ethical and professional guidelines and standards set for all psychologists. Exert an effort to learn about these guidelines and standards, comprehend them, and conform to them no matter what. This is so you can keep the respect and trust of those around you. Justice and fairness. If possible, avoid using the techniques in dark psychology to attain an unreasonable and unfair advantage over other people. Otherwise, you will be violating the rules and principles of justice and fairness. The ultimate secret to succeeding in using dark psychology or fighting it is to treat those around you with dignity, empathy, and respect while encouraging justice and equity in every interaction. By keeping in mind all these ethical standards and considerations, you will be on your way toward practicing dark psychology and subliminal persuasion without causing extreme harm to your target. It also helps to become well-versed in this industry, which is a good way to fight against manipulators and dark psychology users who may use the techniques to endanger you or your loved ones. Conclusion. Congratulations! You have finally finished this book about dark psychology. By now, you have already garnered substantial knowledge about dark psychology and the specific fields and areas surrounding it. These include manipulation, persuasion, and mind control. Based on the information you learned from this comprehensive book, it's now easy to protect and defend yourself from dark psychology practitioners who are attempting to manipulate, control, and persuade you. Being well-versed in this field makes you more capable of protecting yourself from those who may exploit, abuse, and endanger you. The learnings you gained here will also help you practice dark psychology and manipulation correctly. You are now skilled in using it to your best advantage without completely neglecting the welfare and well-being of those you interact with. Sooner or later, you can see yourself starting to influence and control situations, counter and detect manipulations, and achieve what you genuinely desire from life with this book as your guide. Introduction. Are you aiming to uncover the secrets of and understand the world of dark psychology, manipulation, and mind control? Do you want to be more adept at controlling the mind and manipulating people? It could be that you want to learn about these particular areas of dark psychology since you want to defend yourself from manipulative, toxic, and dangerous people. Or you may just be aiming to expand and widen your knowledge in this field so you can begin to practice and apply manipulation strategies subtly to benefit not only your personal life but also your relationships. If you find yourself in the mentioned situations, then this book about mind control, manipulation, and dark psychology can contribute a lot to your attempt to learn more about this somewhat mysterious field. Mind control and dark psychology are such wide topics, and controversial ones at that, as those involve having to stick and consider ethical standards. This is the primary reason why you should first learn and understand every bit of detail about this topic. Practice it only after gaining a full understanding of the topic. This will also promote ease in spotting or detecting someone who may be using dark psychology against you. Basically, mind control can be defined as a system consisting of influences capable of causing significant disruption at the core of a person as well as their identity, including their preferences, behaviors, values, decisions, and relationships. Some say that it is unethical, but only if practiced with the goal of hurting or endangering someone. You can still use it for good, such as when defending yourself from actual manipulators or helping yourself or the people you know to overcome a sort of addiction. The key to making it work for you is to learn about how to use it ethically and with certain restrictions to guarantee that it won't end up harming and hurting someone. To ensure that you get to practice dark psychology and mind control responsibly and safely, you need a comprehensive guide, like this book. Through this book, every question you have about dark psychology will be answered. You will be enlightened on its many facets, especially mind control and persuasion. The tips and techniques you will learn here will surely help perfect your knowledge and skills in this field. thereby boosting your chance of practicing it responsibly and spotting someone who is attempting to harm you through it. Let's begin. Understanding the workings of the mind and the implications of mind control. Are you aiming to develop that incredible ability to manage and control your own mind and maybe that of others when the situation calls for it? Then you should know that full and complete awareness of what is exactly going inside the human brain is extremely important. You have to be really curious about the major components of your skull, even if you don't work as a neuroscientist or neurosurgeon. You may look at the human brain as a complex thing, but the fact that you also have one makes learning about it and understanding its structure and functions all the more interesting. So how does the mind work? For starters, it's highly recommended to look at the human mind and its structure in a simplified manner. That way, its operations and functions will be easier to understand. Visualize that your head has a PC inside, which tends to control all the things you do no matter how trivial. In that case, you can classify the human brain as the hardware, which refers to the physical box. This means that it holds every power connection, memory, storage, processing power, and wiring necessary for you to function well as a person. The fact that your brain works as the hardware means that your mind can be identified as the software. In other words, your mind refers to the operating system responsible for gathering information and storing and managing it with the help of your brain's huge processing resources. With that explanation, it is safe to say that the mind and brain can't live on their own. They should not be separated. This means that they belong to a similar entity, and you can't expect one of them to work without the other. Note that the mind also features two major aspects, the conscious and the unconscious. Conscious. Generally, the conscious mind of humans compose 10% or less of the total operational power of the mind. Based on its name, it is safe to assume that it operates and functions when you are conscious. It is responsible for a lot of brain functions, among which are the following: data gathering and examining and processing your collected data, searching for patterns and doing comparisons, giving orders, making decisions, letting you give out thoughtful responses to certain situations instead of giving out a knee-jerk reaction, regulating short-term memory. If your unconscious mind thinks of something, it is safe to say that it is intentional, which means that you are fully conscious and aware of it. Unconscious. Your unconscious mind encompasses the remaining 90%. A key fact about the unconscious mind is that it is somewhat inaccessible. The reason is that you have no conscious awareness and knowledge of how it works and operates. You don't even know what goes inside there. Despite that, you still have an assurance of the immense power that the unconscious mind holds. It possesses so much power that it holds the responsibility for everything your body does to function well, like breathing, controlling temperature, sleeping, digestion, and maintaining the correct heart rate. Your unconscious mind does all these things without requiring you to lift a finger, which is also something that it can control. Your unconscious mind also tends to protect you by keeping up with the status quo. The reason why there are times when you experience extreme discomfort every time you attempt to change. It is your unconscious mind that will return you to what you consider safe and familiar. With all that, it is safe to say that your unconscious mind is all of the following: the main seat of your feelings and emotions, the source of your creativity and imagination, the place where you form and maintain habits, the part that obeys certain instructions transmitted by the conscious mind, the one that helps in storing and retrieving memories, even long-term ones. Your unconscious mind is also the one that automatically reacts whenever you are facing a threat. You may either run or freeze whenever a threat comes your way. The reality behind your unconscious mind, though, is that it is not fully rational. It is incapable of making judgments nor differentiating good from bad and right from wrong. In other words, it works by simply accepting the messages it receives or the images it obtains and considers as the truth. Expect your subconscious mind to make you feel, think, and behave automatically based on what is in line with the provided truth. This is the main reason why the unconscious mind is the one often used for mind control and manipulation. Introduction to Dark Psychology and Mind Control. For a long time already, dark psychology and its techniques have been fascinating and entrancing people regardless of where they are in the world. While many want to know about dark psychology and its branches, especially manipulation and mind control, to prevent themselves from falling victim to manipulation, others want to study this field so they can practice it. Also, despite its connection to many branches and facets of science, an air of anagogic and mystery kept on enshrouding dark psychology for a long time already. This is the reason why up to now, there are still those who are wondering about its realness. So basically, dark psychology can be described as not only a science, but also as the art of manipulation and mind control. It is different from psychology, which is mainly about the study of traits and behaviors considered as the fundamental of human thoughts, actions, and interactions. In dark psychology, people will have to use various techniques and tactics associated with mind control, manipulation, persuasion, and coercion as a means of getting what they desperately want. It studies the natural condition as related to a human psychological nature to prey on others. To simplify it, it is all about that natural part of humans to let them act willfully and deliberately in a way that they can cause harm to others. Note, though, that using prey here does not literally mean causing physical harm and damage to a person, though there is also a particular branch in dark psychology which allows one to do this. The purpose of this book, though, is just to provide information about dark psychology, manipulation, and mind control while reminding users and practitioners to use its tactics responsibly and with extreme caution. In general, the use of manipulation, coercion, and mind control when practicing dark psychology can benefit the practitioner while restricting or harming the power and freedom of the target or recipient. It is important to note, though, that while dark psychology can be implemented to the subconscious mind most of the time, there are also several instances when it does not allow one to control the mind of people stealthily and sneakily against their will and without any sign of restraint. It also has a few differences to brainwashing, as the latter needs complete control over the target, requires plenty of time to practice, and seems to be ineffective to all people as it only works for those prone to it. Brainwashing also has effects that tend to diminish with time, while dark psychology's effects tend to be longer lasting. To help you understand dark psychology better, here are its primary facets and components. Mind control, which is the process of modifying or distorting the motivation, behavioral outcome, cognition, and perception of someone in a way that their collective or individual freedom, as far as behaving, acting, and choosing is concerned, is compromised. Note that there is nothing mystical or magical in this process, but it comprises a lot of basic social psychological principles. Mind control and manipulation belong to the key aspects of dark psychology that this book will extensively tackle. Manipulation, which involves practicing and using indirect techniques to be in control of one's behaviors, feelings, or emotions and relationships. Note that plenty of people do manipulation tactics every now and then. One example is when you tell someone who is asking you that you are okay even if in reality you feel depressed. The situation technically falls under manipulation since it manifests as your way of controlling how someone perceives you and the response and reaction to you. Note, though, that there are those who practice manipulation and end up causing insidious results and consequences. This is the kind of manipulation often associated with emotional abuse, which usually happens in an intimate relationship. This is the reason why practicing it should be done responsibly. Otherwise, the manipulator may end up being unable to connect genuinely with not only their target, but also their true self. Manipulation also ends up becoming unhealthy if it already harms the physical, emotional, and mental health of both you and your target. Deception, which makes you behave in such a way that you make those around you believe false or untrue things. The act of lying falls under deception. Although many know how important trust is in all forms of relationships, there are still instances when it is undermined because of deception. In fact, no one can deny that several people end up succumbing to the act of lying or deceiving others, even on trivial matters, at least once in their lifetime. Reverse psychology, which is another facet of dark psychology that you can use in getting what you want or attaining your major objectives. As the name suggests, this tactic requires convincing and encouraging your target to give you your desired outcome, even if what you ask them to do is the exact opposite. So basically, this technique can give you your desires by demanding or asking for the thing that you don't truly want. In other words, rather than communicating your intentions and wishes directly, you will be cloaking or concealing them by requesting the opposite. Social conditioning, which mainly revolves around the sociological process that trains people in one society to react or respond based on what the entire group or society accepts and approves. It has a lot of manifestations, though. The usual categories include social patterns and social structures, like those in education, family life, entertainment, popular culture, career or employment, spirituality, and nationalism. Mentioned are just a few of the many facets and areas of dark psychology. Note, though, that what is common among all these facets is that they involve manipulation and mind control. Now, the question is, how do you know if someone is manipulating you or controlling your mind? You have to watch out for these signs so even the littlest clue can be detected, making it possible for you to protect yourself from heinous manipulators who keep on controlling your mind and emotions. Mismatched words and actions. Act like emotional black holes. Adept at making you feel guilty almost all of the time. Act like victims all the time. Behave exaggeratedly too soon. Example, acting like they care so much for you even if you just met. Act like martyrs by agreeing to extend help and volunteer even if those acts are not genuine. Fully aware of your buttons and how to push them. Capable of destabilizing your principles and beliefs as well as how you view reality. The list of signs that indicate the fact that you are manipulated and your mind is already controlled is actually very extensive and exhaustive. Note that if you are unfamiliar with dark psychology and mind control, you may have a hard time noticing that a manipulator is already targeting and controlling you. Experts and more devious manipulators have even mastered this art and science, so it is even more difficult and challenging to spot them. Despite that, you can still protect yourself from them if you start learning about this field right now. You need to have a grasp of the different signs of manipulation and mind control and how dark psychology works in general. Your knowledge will be your source of protection and defense against abusive people. Your knowledge in this field is also a major contributor in improving major aspects of your life. It is because it lets you use it for a safe and positive purpose. However, you still have to constantly remind yourself of the significance of being a wise and responsible practitioner of dark psychology. Now it's time to master the art of mind control, manipulation, and dark psychology by uncovering its fascinating tricks and tactics that will be comprehensively and extensively covered and highlighted in the succeeding chapters of this book. How to analyze people through body language. One of the first few things you have to learn when planning to master mind control and manipulation is the basics of using body language to analyze people and interpret their behaviors. Note that while there are those you can easily read, meaning you can figure out their feelings and emotions within just seconds of looking at them, others are more difficult and trickier to interpret. The latter provides subtle cues that you may have a difficult time analyzing and interpreting. If you study body language and how to interpret these cues, you will feel more confident analyzing everyone around you on sight. It's important to cultivate the ability to read and interpret body language correctly, since it will serve as your guide in traversing through various aspects of your life. This is especially helpful when it comes to interacting with people. You can also put this skill to good use when doing mind control and manipulation. So what exactly is body language? Body language encompasses the nonverbal cues and signals that a person can transmit to those they interact with. Despite being nonverbal, these body language signals compose a big part of your everyday interactions and communications. As a matter of fact, around 60 to 65% of all communications comprise body language. This is the reason why a full and complete understanding of various nonverbal cues, body language, is extremely important. Some examples are facial expressions, body movements, posture, eye gaze, and gestures. Most of the time, what you don't say actually carries more volume and meaning than what you say verbally. There are numerous benefits to learning and understanding how to read and interpret body language. For one, it serves as an indomitable instrument for understanding not only yourself, but also others. It can instantly supply you with information about the feelings of people in a particular situation. Body language is also useful if you aim to express your real intentions and feelings without the use of words. This makes it a lot easier for you to control the minds of other people and your own mind and detect or practice manipulation anytime necessary. Body language actually has three major classifications: eye gaze, facial expressions, and gestures. However, there are also other areas like personal distance and posture that are extremely useful in spreading information. Also, take note that while it is significant to comprehend and read body language correctly, you also have to be skilled in observing other important signals and cues like context. Remember that there will be several instances when you have to look at signals and cues as a group instead of focusing on just one action. How to read and interpret body language correctly. The accurate reading and interpretation of body language will always be a solid instrument when trying to analyze people, practice mind control and manipulation, or detect whether someone is using dark psychology against you. In that case, you have to take note of the following to increase your chance of doing an accurate read and analysis. Mouth. When one smiles, you may immediately think of it as a sign of goodwill and positivity. However, the reality is it does not mean that way all the time. The reason is that there are different kinds of smiles that you can decode by observing the mouth. Each of these smiles has different meanings. You may also want to check the lips' actual position to decode it properly. How do you know if someone is smiling genuinely? In most cases, it is characterized by mouth corners turning up combined with narrowed eyes featuring some wrinkles at the corner. As for smiles that are insincere, you will notice that the eyes are not involved. The reason is that smiling insincerely may cause discomfort. Check whether the smile is partial or comes with a smirk. If it does and comes after micro-expressions of contempt or displeasure, then it could mean that the person you are talking to is uncertain, dislikes you or the conversation, or feels disdainful. There is also a chance of attraction if the smile comes with prolonged eye contact, head tilt, or long glance. You also have to observe the lips as different positions may have different meanings. Unease if the lips are either narrowed or compressed. Sadness or fear if the lips are quivering. Disapproval or anger when the lips are pursed. At ease and comfortable if the lips are open or parted a bit. Eyes. Spend time observing and watching closely the eyes of anyone you are interacting with. The eyes can express a lot of things and emotions, so you should not miss looking at them. These body parts can spread plenty of useful information, especially as far as the level of interest and mood of a person is concerned. One thing that you should observe in the eyes is whether or not they are blinking rapidly. If there is rapid blinking, it can mean that the person doing it is experiencing a lot of stress. There are also certain cases when rapid blinking indicates dishonesty. Also take note that in several cases, there is a possibility that the blinking will become even faster if one is trying to go past a challenging problem. It could also be that they feel completely uncomfortable or something worries them and makes them feel afraid. Examine the dilation of the pupils too. If you have positive feelings for someone, you will notice your pupils naturally dilating. Such positive feelings may be released if there is a romantic attraction, though you can't expect it to be the case all the time. One thing to note about dilation of the pupils is that it often occurs as your body's reaction to your nervous system stimulation. This is also the reason why those who feel afraid or angry also show dilated pupils. Also, there is a possibility for your pupils to become smaller or contract if you are not fond of something. Another important thing about the eyes that you have to analyze is the direction of the gaze. Take note that both your eyes are capable of following the ones that captured your interest. With that in mind, you have to track how one's gaze moves, as this will give an idea of their actual mood. Taking that premise into account, if one's eyes seem to keep wandering around as you dine in together, it is highly likely that their interest is more in eating peacefully than talking to you. In addition, the eyes may move to one side or downward when one is doing the following: finding actual solutions to a problem, recalling memories or relevant information, reminding yourself or thinking of things that are quite difficult. There is also what we call eye blocking, which you have to observe in people. If you are unfamiliar with it, take note that it involves things such as using your hand to cover both eyes or closing both eyes briefly, like when doing a long blink. You can also perceive someone as doing eye blocking if they constantly rub their eyes and squint. It is crucial to note that while blocking is unconscious, in general, it still tends to give suggestions regarding your actual feelings. Also, some people use blocking whenever they deal with something they dislike or if they feel frustrated, annoyed, or irritated. Eye blocking may also indicate your hesitation or disapproval of what is being recommended for you to do. Legs and arms. Other body parts you have to interpret also include the arms and legs. As for the message that the arms may send non-verbally, it could be that they are feeling anxious, worried, vulnerable, and uninterested. If one crosses their arms, it could also mean that they feel confident. Also, if you notice someone crossing their arms as they smile, demonstrating other signs that show their comfort level and leaning back, it could mean that they feel like they are the ones in control. In other words, they are not the vulnerable ones or those prone to dark psychology and mind control. What your arms are telling you can also provide you with a solid sense of protection. Make sure, though, that your focus is on looking for these behaviors and indicators. Putting an arm on a table or chair to rest. Holding a thing, then placing it against the chest. Creating distance by spreading out one arm. Holding another one that is behind you at the back with the help of one arm. These gestures are capable of subconsciously informing someone of the uncomfortable feeling brought on by the current setting or situation. With that, it is crucial for them to look for a way to somewhat steady themselves or give themselves protection. Hands. You can also assess one's feelings and emotions through hand gestures. In most cases, these gestures are used to emphasize something when talking. A person whose gestures are more enthusiastic is highly likely to be very excited about something. In this case, among the things you have to observe are the following: outstretched hands. If combined with both palms facing up, this hand gesture could mean that someone is unconsciously opening themselves up. Clenched fists. This gesture indicates the feeling of frustration or anger. One may end up clenching their fist when aiming to control their angry or frustrated emotions. As far as the facial expressions, expect it to stay relaxed and neutral. You may also be wondering what it means when one seems to keep on touching their cheek almost all of the time on instinct. It usually represents how careful they are in taking something into account. It also shows their genuine and solid interest in your talk or discussion. Feet and legs. You also have to watch out for the feelings of restlessness and nervousness not only within yourself, but also in other people by examining the legs and feet. It is highly likely that the one feels restless and nervous if their body language includes foot tapping, leg jiggling, and shifting from one foot to another. There is also what we call crossed legs now, which may indicate that one is unwilling to listen to what the other party has to say. Your feet and that of others also work when it comes to revealing and emphasizing certain information. In this case, you have to look at the direction of one's feet when they are talking to you. If you notice the feet pointing away, there is a high possibility that they feel like it would be much better to leave the talk instead of continuing it. You will know that they are genuinely loving the conversation and having fun with it if you see their feet pointing toward you. Since they enjoy the talk, expect them to hope that it will continue. Distance. Check the physical distance maintained by someone as they talk to you, as there are instances when it will provide clues as to what they feel or what their exact mood is. Remember that several people would want to maintain a good distance from others. This is particularly true if they just met the ones they are interacting with. Meanwhile, You can also find some who still feel comfortable even when their personal space with other people is minimal. It could be that they are used to sitting or standing closely since it is their natural way of interacting with others. Such differences make it even more essential to learn about how those around you feel and behave depending on the distance they keep from you. Here are some telling behaviors based on physical distance. Standing or sitting too closely on a regular basis means that they are enjoying your presence and company. Standing with a noticeable distance may mean that one is literally trying to create a distance, both emotionally and physically from you. This is also the case if you notice them taking 1 or 2 steps back whenever you try to move forward and get closer to them. Sitting closely accompanied by a slight touch or smile is usually an indication that one is kind of physically attracted to the other. In several cases, this is also even more noticeable when they lean into you to talk. Raising an arm or hand as they step back usually means that they want to create more physical distance or barrier. Posture. Posture is also another type of body language you have to observe closely if you are aiming to analyze and read people more accurately. Expect body posture to provide insights as to the actual mood and feelings of a person. You can detect their real feelings through posture, especially if you notice that it is different from the way they normally and frequently carry themselves. For instance, if you notice someone who keeps on leaning back on any kind of support, like a wall, it may mean that they are disinterested or bored. Meanwhile, if they lean to you as you talk, then there is a great possibility that they are enjoying the conversation and they are interested and excited about it. Other body postures you can look into that tend to suggest or represent something are the following. Standing straight with both hands planted on the hips. This posture usually shows that the person is eager, confident, and excited. Standing straight accompanied by hands on the sides. In most cases, this indicates a resting posture, which means that one is eager to interact and listen to you. Head resting on one hand. It may be an indication of interest. However, it is highly likely that you are interacting with someone bored and fatigued if their head is supported by their 2 hands. Tilting of the body or head. This is especially helpful if you are trying to practice dark psychology, mind control, and manipulation, or if you are attempting to reveal the truth that someone is doing to you. In some cases, it can also mean that they are attracted, though you have to confirm this based on other nonverbal cues they present on that particular occasion. What makes body language so important? Now that you have an idea about body language, you may have also discovered how important it is in effective communication and social interaction. For one, you can earn someone's trust as you show proper eye contact or nod your head to show them that you are truly listening. There are also instances when you unconsciously mirror the body language of someone, which indicates a bond. Another thing that knowledge about body language can do is that it can help you uncover the truth. This is especially helpful if you are trying to practice dark psychology, mind control, and manipulation if you are attempting to reveal the truth that someone is doing to you. Does one's body language tend to mismatch with their words? Then it could be because of their attempt to withhold or hide information from you. It could also be that they are deceiving you, which of course you need to catch early on, so you won't fall victim to their deception and manipulation tactics. Your strong understanding of nonverbal cues or body language is truly helpful in improving the way you communicate and interact with others. It is also the key to having a close to accurate interpretation of the real message conveyed by someone. However, take note that no matter how tempting it is to assess body cues one by one, you should still make your final interpretation once you have already matched it with other signals, like verbal cues and communication, the present situation, and other nonverbal cues. That way, the result of your analysis and interpretation will be highly accurate. You can also learn more about how to communicate your nonverbal communication to become better at letting people know what you are feeling without even saying a word. The art of persuasion with emotional influence and manipulation. When it comes to mind control and manipulation, Mastering the art of persuasion plays a crucial role in your success. However, you may have also asked yourself why it is so effortless for some people to persuade others. Are you also capable of doing the same? Is persuasion a skill you need to have at birth, or is it learnable? The good news is that you don't need to have this skill from birth because it is indeed something you can learn and harness. The art of persuasion and its different techniques, especially when linked to emotional influence and manipulation, can be harnessed by understanding its major principles. The art of persuasion and its principles. A solid knowledge of persuasion can contribute a lot if you regularly have to convince or encourage someone to act or behave in a certain way. Persuasion serves several purposes. One is in terms of effective and powerful brand promotions. If you are asked to promote your brand, having the ability to persuade will help you find ways to make your brand more endearing to your market. Your career will also greatly benefit if you are able to hone and cultivate your persuasion skills. It is particularly useful during times when you are proposing a project and you are seeking approval. You can even put it to good use when planning to ask for a raise and you are still convincing your boss that you deserve it. Note, though, that since the art of persuasion uses tactics that somewhat involve influence, manipulation, and mind control, you have to learn about its working principles first. Learn and follow the principles of persuasion as it will guide you for the responsible and wise use of this technique. It also helps a lot if you are still on the verge of earning the trust of your target. Reciprocity. One key principle associated with the practice of persuasion is reciprocity. In reciprocity, returning favors is the norm. This means that every time you respond positively to the request of someone, it is highly likely for them to do something for you in return, too. This may just be a simple principle, but its effect on someone is very significant. When it comes to practicing this principle, remember that its main focus is to give first. The reason is that anyone who gets something will somehow feel obliged to give back or return the favor. Consistency or commitment. Persuasion also seems to work under the principle of consistency or commitment, which is vital because it helps in establishing credibility and trust. Present yourself in such a way that those around you will sense your commendable commitment. This is necessary as this serves as confirmation to those around you that you are indeed reliable. That is, you are someone they can depend on as far as following through on your commitments is concerned. This principle demonstrates your commitment to fulfill any promise you have. It also shows your trustworthiness. If people see that you have those mentioned positive qualities, then there is a high likelihood that they would want to keep on interacting with you and supporting you. They will take you seriously since you have demonstrated the fact that you are indeed a man of words. This can also increase your persuasive effects on them, making it possible for you to convince them to do something for you or listen to anything you intend to say. Authority. People of authority are also among those who have strong persuasive skills. They have a strong and powerful influence considering the fact that their authority, experience, and expertise may make them even more believable. If you have plans on persuading someone, it is therefore crucial that you get to show and establish your authority depending on the specific matter you are dealing with. Fortunately, you have several options when attempting to demonstrate your authority, including displaying any award, accolade, or credential you received. If you have a website, you can post it there for everyone to see. Talk as if you are an expert in your chosen niche. Ensure that you have a strong and active presence online and on social media. By doing such things, you can show everyone that you are fully knowledgeable in your niche. In other words, you are credible and anything that you say regarding the topic is based on your expertise. This kind of showmanship of authority also increases the likelihood of the people around hearing you and taking everything you say seriously. This is a big help if you are still in the stage of improving your reputation. Once that happens, persuading other people will become almost second nature since you will start discovering that it is indeed easier to do. Social persuasion and proof. There is also what we refer to as social persuasion or social proof. This is one of the most powerful and solid persuasion tactics as it tends to tap into the human's natural instinct to follow other people's lead. In most cases, this is practiced under the assumption that it is the most accurate action because you see those around you doing the same. This kind of assumption is the reason behind the release of several online testimonials and reviews that are so influential that they end up persuading others to act. In psychology, you can call this principle the information social influence. You can look at its premise based on this scenario. Imagine a researcher who invited a few people to dine in a restaurant that is unfamiliar to them. Upon hearing that many customers love to eat at that restaurant and that it received high positive reviews, you may be persuaded to give their food a try. This may have positive influences on your mind, which means that you will start perceiving the restaurant in a more positive light. Even if the food is not yet served and you have not tried it yet, your overall mood and experience will improve. Through this principle, earning people's trust when offering a product or anything else to them is a strong possibility. It also means that you need social proof if your goal is to build a strong and solid reputation. Scarcity. Another key principle governing the art of persuasion is scarcity. You can persuade and influence people using the scarcity mindset. This is a strong, influential technique, especially if you consider the nature of humans to desire to own something that is already scarce or rare. Most people naturally perceive something scarce as more precious compared to when it is still highly abundant. One can harness this scarcity perception when aiming to bolster persuasion power. This principle is so effective and powerful, which is why you can see it being used in the art of perception for several centuries already. You will even find it useful in improving your reputation, which can further bolster your ability to persuade. You may also want to use this principle on yourself. You can make others see you as someone rare and scarce so they will start looking at you as someone with more value. The bigger your value is in people's perception, the higher your persuasive power and influence will become. One more thing that the scarcity principle can do for you is to make you more admirable and respectable. Your rarity will make you look more special. You will appear as someone with more edge compared to the others. Avoid faking scarcity, though, as it may only ruin your reputation and diminish your persuasion skills. Emotional manipulation and mind control through persuasion. One thing to take note about persuasion is that it does not immediately fall under manipulation. Note that manipulation often revolves around coercing or forcing others to act or behave in a way that is beneficial and favorable to the manipulator. The act does not put the best interest of the target or victim first. Meanwhile, persuasion focuses on influencing and convincing others to act in a way that is mutually beneficial for the two parties involved. Despite that, the two are correlated in the sense that you can also use your persuasion skills and power to manipulate someone and control their mind and emotions. However, you still have to remind yourself of ethical standards. This means you still have to think of what is safe for those you are planning to subject to persuasion and manipulation. It would do you good to be responsible enough to work on implementing manipulation strategies that can benefit both parties. It is also crucial to understand how emotional persuasion and manipulation work exactly, as this is what will guide you in preventing someone from doing it to you, especially if it has a high chance of resulting in harm in the end. In general, emotional persuasion refers to the technique that you can use when appealing to your target's feelings and emotions, so you will end up convincing them to provide support to a certain stance or act in your favor. In most cases, this technique requires you to use images and language guaranteed to arouse strong emotions. The goal here is to keep the audience more engaged emotionally. You can see emotional persuasion being widely used in a lot of areas and contexts, among which are politics, social causes, and advertising. The reason is that when practiced correctly, it is likely for it to inspire certain emotions like sympathy, empathy, happiness, and even fear. It can evoke certain feelings and emotions that will end up motivating or encouraging the target to believe, behave, or act in a specific way. To make emotional persuasion more powerful and effective, ensure that it connects with the beliefs, values, and experiences of your target. The call to action should also be clear, giving them a clear path as to how they should act or behave. One important reminder is that while emotional persuasion is guaranteed to be an influential and powerful instrument if you use it responsibly and ethically, you still have to be extra cautious and mindful when implementing it. The reason is that it may end up being too dangerously manipulative once it starts appealing to the target's negative feelings and emotions. The same is true if it already involves the use of misleading and false information. This makes it all the more crucial to practice emotional persuasion with caution. Carefully consider how it can affect your subject or target. In most cases, emotional persuasion is already negative and kind of dangerous when it involves the manipulation of the mind and emotions of individuals with the end goal of controlling them. This is the case if the following techniques are already being practiced. Guilt tripping. It is likely that you are being guilt-tripped if someone keeps on making you feel guilty or responsible because of a decision you made or a past or recent action. In most cases, guilt-tripping happens when one uses what you did in the past as a form of leverage. They end up using it against you so you will follow their requests or give in to their demands. Let's say, for example, you ask for help from someone so you can get into college. However, recently he seems to keep on reminding you of how much you owe them. This may lead to pressure on your part, making you feel obliged to follow their demands all the time due to guilt. If this happens to you, then you may have been guilt-tripped. Gaslighting. Gaslighting can be defined as a psychological tactic that may cause you to begin doubting how you perceive reality. In this technique, a manipulator will begin questioning how valid your feelings and memory are with the goal of gaining an advantage or an upper hand. This may also result in you doubting yourself and starting to distrust your decisions and judgment. You may even start questioning what you know as your reality and start wondering if it truly happened. One thing about gaslighting is that it is done either intentionally or unintentionally. With that said, you have to find out first if someone prompts you to doubt and question your point of view and reality on purpose before acting on it. If you sense that you have been gaslighted, you should look at the situation using a wider and broader point of view. It also helps to open up an honest discussion and conversation regarding your concerns. If the case seems to be really intentional, then it indicates that you may have been deeply abused emotionally. You may want to seek the help of trusted people that are not part of your partnership with a manipulator so you can search for the truth more objectively. Love bombing. The beginning of a romantic relationship is an exciting moment for someone. It is the time when you will feel almost all positive emotions, including fun, genuine joy, and excitement. The positive feelings may be even more intense if you find yourself being head over heels with your new partner. However, this can also make you prone to what we call love bombing, which is a somewhat deceptive tactic of manipulation since at the beginning, it involves giving you all the romantic and positive feelings you can think of. Of course, it is natural for humans to want to be the ones receiving overflowing amounts of gifts, affection, and flattery. Based on that premise, it is safe to say that love bombing happens when one tends to adore you almost excessively. For example, when you notice your new partner showing up in your workplace daily or if he keeps on sending you a lot of poetic and romantic messages. Expert manipulators tend to use love bombing as a means of buttering up their targets, thereby lowering the chance of them receiving protests whenever they get manipulated. It usually takes place after being abused for a while and when the manipulator tries to atone for how they acted. Now, how can you stop someone who is love bombing you? Yes, you may find it difficult to question a person who just seems to have an overflowing love for you. This is especially true if the feelings seem to be mutual. However, if you are already uncomfortable with the somewhat overwhelming amount of admiration you receive from someone, opening up a frank and honest talk may be necessary. It may be time for a confrontation if there is already a noticeable pattern of you being love bombed, which is followed by other types of manipulation, abuse, and devaluation. Fear-mongering. There is also what we call fear-mongering, otherwise called fear propaganda. It refers to a type of emotional manipulation tactic. The goal is to cause people to panic or fear something even if unnecessary or unreasonable. It is a popular tactic used by people in power and those in the government, media, and corporations when attempting to disseminate or spread messages of fear. This form of emotional manipulation works under the psychological premise that whenever one feels afraid, it can trigger their fight or flight response. In other words, they will feel obliged to avoid or confront the main cause of the fear. Each time you feel afraid, your brain will automatically release adrenaline, the one that will prompt a higher level of alertness, increase your heart rate, and cause anxiety symptoms. It causes a kind of arousal that increases your susceptibility to just believe and accept any message delivered to you that induces fear. Avoid such a situation, though. Never get involved in this particular type of psychological and emotional manipulation as much as possible. Otherwise, you may end up suffering from panic, anxiety, and stress, further leading to avoidance behavior. Fear propaganda, or fear-mongering, also has powerful effects that you will surely notice once you see how it controls the opinions of the public or even influences the patterns through which people vote. In addition, this kind of manipulation is often used to paralyze people, demoralize them, and cultivate the feeling of being powerless. Acting as the victim. A lot of manipulators also seem to master the act of playing like the victim. In other words, they lack the ability to take responsibility or accountability for however they behave, even if negative. Are you with someone who further worsens your inferiority complex? Then consider it a red flag. This is true if you feel pressure to be the one who will apologize each time there is an argument. This is also true if you rarely hear the other party saying sorry. If you realize that there is indeed an intentional emotional manipulation, control, and persuasion, you should try to look for a way to stop the urge to say sorry to the other always. Make it a habit to spend a few minutes reflecting first before you apologize. Even a few moments of reflection would be enough to help you determine if it is indeed your fault. It will help you decide whether you should still be the one who has to say sorry. If you know that you are not at fault and realize that there is no reason to be overly apologetic, then avoid giving it. What you have to do instead is to talk to the other party and state your facts and reality calmly. However, if they start pressuring you to give an apology by acting like a victim, then ending the talk may be the wisest move you can make. Subliminal messaging and its impact on the human mind. Now let's tackle subliminal messaging, which also has an impact on the human mind. The question is, does the use of subliminal messages work effectively in mind control and manipulation? The answer is yes, though you have to be 100% sure you are using it correctly. In fact, several practitioners believe that there is an immediate link between subliminal messages and mind control, a form of mental manipulation triggering the change of one's views or behaviors regarding certain things. In several cases, you can see these messages being used to persuade someone to try and buy a product or avail of a service. It will also be useful in persuading someone to vote for a specific politician during elections. If done right, it can also socially re-engineer the victim in a certain way without their knowledge or consent. This may sound hideous for some, considering the fact that it involves manipulation and persuasion with the targets being unwilling victims at times. However, a few also have a more positive take on this technique. They find subliminal messages positive as they can utilize them as effective and powerful tools for self-development. One example is when you use this type of manipulative message in reprogramming your subconscious mind so it will focus more on attaining success. The message holds so much power that it has the ability to alter your mindset. This is usually enough for you to do certain things that you think are impossible. One of which is releasing yourself from a bad habit, which is so restricting and limiting for you, and forming new ones that are more goal-centric. This chapter will enlighten you on what exactly is subliminal message and how it works. You will also have an idea about the proper use of it, making sure that it is for your own good. Once you are enlightened, it will be easier to catch someone doing it to you and your loved ones. With that, there is a low chance that you will be harmed by this tactic. Subliminal messages defined. If the concept of using subliminal messages is still new to you, then take note that it can be defined as a message one receives unconsciously. In other words, the actual message is concealed using perceptible sounds or pictures, causing them to bypass your consciousness or active awareness. It can therefore directly impact your subconscious mind as it absorbs the message. The result is that the concealed message penetrates your mind and you are left unaware of it. Once such messages reach your mind, it is likely for them to begin triggering your fears and desires. Most subliminal messaging techniques are used by advertisers too, because those seem to make the messages more powerful and action-oriented. One example is integrating intense and conversational words like death and sex into the messages. There are also instances when powerful and unique images like skulls, contorted faces, and phallic symbols are embedded into images that are otherwise ordinary. You can see these images being embedded in advertising pictures and slogans. There are also instances when they are flashed in advertisements for just a couple of seconds to ensure that the conscious mind will not be able to sense and detect them. Several marketers and advertisers use this particular subliminal messaging technique as it is effective in mind control, enticing its audience to buy and pay for products and services, even those that they do not primarily need. Just a quick search on the internet will give you an idea of how companies use such a technique in tapping the subconscious minds of their target audience and reaching their subliminal perception. Types of subliminal messaging. Subliminal messaging can be classified in several forms, but most of them are proven useful and reliable in almost every kind of advertising, including TV, radio, and print. The user can even pick a type that they can incorporate into their social media pages. You can integrate them in your captions and pictures on Instagram, Snapchat campaigns, and Facebook advertisements. Auditory. An auditory subliminal message, as the name suggests, refers to a message integrated into audio materials and resources. This type is also divided into two: subaudible messages and backmasking. A subaudible message is one mixed into loud sounds and music that hearing them is quite hard. You will have to integrate or insert it into an audio material, such as a recording or an interview or a song or music. The actual subliminal message has a lower volume compared to the primary sound or audio. This makes the presence of the message subtle. Despite the low volume of the message that it will be challenging for your conscious mind to hear, your brain is still naturally capable of storing the message inside your subconscious mind and memory. When that happens, it is able to do its job of delivering the message to your subconscious, which will let you pull out its important details anytime necessary. There is another technique called backmasking, which provides another means of inserting a subliminal message to an audio. In backmasking, the message will have to be recorded backward or in reverse. When you play it forward, you can't understand the exact meaning, but your subconscious will still be able to decode the message, allowing you to grasp it in the end. Visual. Based on its name, one can immediately sense that visual subliminal messaging involves the use of messages that will be flashed right in front of your eyes. It does so without giving your conscious mind the chance to pick it up. It has two types, one of which is what we call embeds. In this type of visual subliminal messaging, the message will be presented as an image or symbol that you can't see right away. The message is existing, but the one that will be able to grasp it is your subconscious. The other type is the subvisual cue, which you can often see being used in different ad materials, including TV, print, and other ads that you can see. Expect this type of visual subliminal message to demonstrate subtle visual messages and cues to the target audience. It could be in the form of a message concealed inside a logo. It could also be a tiny picture that is being integrated into another picture. One key fact about these subvisual cues is that they are often so quick and tiny that your consciousness will not be able to detect their presence. The one that will be storing the information is your brain, specifically the part where your subconsciousness is in. Different methods of practicing subliminal mind control. Again, the process associated with subliminal mind control involves sending messages to your subconscious subtly and without you being completely aware of it. Some may find this shady, but a lot of people are actually implementing such strategies on a daily basis. It is a great technique used in the world of marketing and advertising as it involves subtle persuasion. Let's take a look at the commercial where you see a girl enjoying her orange juice. Note that while the ad looks innocent, It does not just involve the drink and the girl. The commercial is made in a way that spreads numerous subliminal messages. Such messages aim to persuade the viewers to give the offered product or service a try. Despite not literally belonging to the advertising industry, you can still benefit from learning a couple of things about subliminal messages and mind control tactics. The reason is that it helps in making your life bearable. You can use the following couple of subliminal strategies to obtain an edge in various aspects of your life. Use your vocabulary to leave a good and positive impression. One of the simplest strategies that will help you fully understand subliminal messaging and mind control is to use vocabulary to impress those around you. Remember that it is natural for many people to look up to people who appear to be beyond them. This could be the driving force for you to want to appear respectable. You may want to make people see clearly that you are indeed worthy of respect and admiration. You can effectively do this by improving your vocabulary. It also helps to inject new words into all your discussions and conversations. You may look at this method as very simple, but its subliminal effect can make those around you, including strangers, to trust and believe anything you say. It also helps to use jargon related to the industry you are in. This helps a lot in making yourself appear truly intellectual and professional. However, if you feel like the one you are talking to is not that knowledgeable on the conversation's topic, make it a point to use simple words. The words should be simple so that they can quickly and easily catch and relate to them. Never attempt to leave a positive impression on others using vague and complex words, as the unfamiliarity may only end up driving them away. Offer benefits. Another way to use subliminal mind control to your benefit is to offer anyone you are talking to benefits. The goal here is to let them know and understand that your proposal can greatly benefit them. It is natural for humans to aim to receive greater rewards and benefits, and you can use this for subliminal messaging. For example, if you are aiming to persuade or influence one to be a member of your political party, you have to clearly explain how it can benefit or profit them. You may lure some people to get into your side by offering significant benefits that they can enjoy now and in the future. You may also give out promotional materials such as mugs and shirts. Tap into emotions. The goal is to penetrate the hearts of your audience. Note that humans have this natural ability to emphasize and feel emotions. If your main objective is to acquire your wants and desires covertly, then this strategy of tapping into your heart and emotions can help you a lot. For instance, think of a charitable organization known for its really nice background story. In that case, the organization has a much better chance of raising its funds compared to a charity without any dramatic story. The same premise is applicable to adorable kids who can seem to charm the hearts of their parents like no other, causing them to get what they demand from time to time. Improve negative behaviors, habits, and thought patterns. You will also find the use of subliminal messages helpful in improving your negative behaviors, habits, and thought patterns. The reason is that it is capable of boosting motivation and mood, inspiring others to work on what they genuinely want, and encouraging positive stimulation. It is also useful in altering your negative perceptions and turning them into positive ones. If you are suffering from several conditions that affect your mind negatively, example, phobia, addiction, or any other mental illness, it helps to keep on using subliminal messaging to improve your situation. It is a major contributor to changing the way your mind thinks, thereby improving several areas of your life. Keeping yourself protected from dangerous subliminal messaging and mind control. Subliminal messaging noticeably has several remarkable benefits. However, the most common that you can classify it with is that it is a form of mind control. It can therefore lead to compulsive traits and behaviors. With that, you have to also learn how to defend your subconscious mind from it. Otherwise, you may end up being controlled and manipulated without your knowledge. For instance, you should remind yourself that any form of advertisement is filled with a lot of subliminal stimuli. By knowing that, you will find yourself having a sort of defense against the possible influence of an ad. It is a crucial step if your goal is to stop yourself from getting subjected to manipulation or mind control. So how can you give yourself a solid form of defense against subliminal messaging? Here are a few simple tips. Reduce your habit of watching TV excessively. You may want to stop watching too much TV. This can lessen your exposure to ads that may only invade your mind and cause you to be manipulated. Let go of excessive TV use and replace it with activities that let you be one with nature. Use meditation. It also helps to tap into your inner self. Be attuned with your own self, as it will also help you partner with your subconscious comfortably. Meditation can help elevate your sense of consciousness and awareness, thereby boosting your chance of remaining in charge of subliminal stimuli. Work with crystals and gemstones. Choose those capable of protecting your mind, though. One example is sodalite, which can help harmonize your subconscious and conscious mind while promoting mental clarity. Surround yourself with a psychic defense shield. By doing this, it would be easier for you to protect yourself from the dangerous practice of mind control that subliminal messages carry. Do this by relaxing and surrounding yourself with a powerful and solid psychic force composed only of positive energy. Make sure that you also believe in the ability of this shield to protect you from being subconsciously conditioned and manipulated. One last thing that you can do to prevent subliminal messaging from taking full advantage of you is this. Whenever you are enticed to buy something, reflect first. You should ask yourself several times whether you genuinely want or need the product. This is so you can differentiate what you truly like from the kind of want that the advertisers may have only led you to believe using the power of subliminal messages. Hypnosis and covert influence. In terms of learning and understanding mind control and manipulation, a topic that you will surely encounter is what we call covert hypnosis. You may have also heard about it before, and your interest grew even more after you decided to learn about mind control. Basically, covert hypnosis is an interesting subject that a lot of people, including salespersons, advertisers, and therapists, among many others, wish to learn and master. In fact, they are among the thousands who have been trying to master a few tips and tricks in covert hypnosis for years. Note, though, that the practice of covert hypnosis is kind of subject to controversies because of the ethical and moral concerns that people raise. Yes, no one can doubt its power and effectiveness in terms of persuasion and influence. However, there are also ethical and moral factors that one should take into account. Otherwise, there is a great chance for its practitioners to disregard the possibility that the techniques will be abused by using it in harmful manipulation and mind control. This makes it necessary for you to constantly remind yourself how important it is to meet the ethical standards and considerations about covert hypnosis and influence before you start studying it, and probably put its techniques to practice. The most important thing that will lead to the proper and successful use of covert hypnosis is to ensure that you take fair and justifiable responsibility. It is important to straighten the use and application of covert hypnosis based on critical ethical factors and standards associated with respect, safety, and health of the target of hypnosis and authorization. The practice of covert hypnosis will also have a better chance of becoming effective and successful if you make the other party participate. Despite the need for their participation, you still have an assurance that there is no need for you to customize this tactic uniquely for them. You can still make it work in your favor while keeping the other party unharmed. So let's start learning about covert hypnosis, so you can finally put the strategies that fall under it to good use. What is covert hypnosis exactly? Otherwise referred to as conversational hypnosis, covert hypnosis can be defined as a means of influencing someone indirectly with the help of hypnotic concepts. You will have to apply these concepts and techniques in your daily talks and conversations so you can persuade others or make them adjust their behaviors without them recognizing it consciously. Compared to the typical hypnosis method that uses formal induction techniques, you will notice that covert hypnosis runs discreetly. In other words, it tends to bypass your consciousness or the mind where awareness is in. You can therefore expect it to function straight or directly to your subconscious mind. In that regard, the aim of this form of hypnosis is to communicate with your subconscious mind. This happens without you being aware of it. The fact that the attempt is usually without the knowledge of the subject and often injected into normal daily talks and conversations is the primary reason behind it being called covert. It stealthily hypnotizes its target. Note, though, that despite often working under that premise, you can also find other definitions for this technique, allowing it to approach various angles and perspectives. One is that it is a scientific and powerful breakthrough, which works effectively in controlling the minds of the subject of hypnosis. It also helps in changing behavior and hypnotically persuading someone to fulfill your demands without their knowledge. Some also say that it is an effective tool to get any information you want from the subject. The only thing to do is to utilize some tools for hypnosis even if the subject is awake. Overall, you can see it working as a controlling and powerful instrument designed to influence those around you without their deliberate awareness. There are several reasons why many people are now tempted to utilize covert hypnosis. Some intend to use it for good, like in the case of manifesting positive intentions. Note, though, that in some extreme cases, others abuse it and use it for negativity. Still, I highly recommend using it only for goodness and positivity. For example, it is valuable in promoting goodness and abundance in your own life and loved ones. Also remember that covert hypnosis will always act as a stealthy yet powerful and effective means of controlling the mind of others. Some decide to hone this skill as a way to make them more impressive to others, but note that you can also use it for self-improvement. One example when attempting to make yourself wealthier. In addition, it is useful in enticing someone to get into your life or gain advantages from them. It is truly an effective means of getting your wants and needs. Though, you have to be careful every time you use it and ensure you don't end up putting yourself or your loved ones in danger because of it. Important stages in covert hypnosis. If you are thinking of making covert hypnosis a part of your skill set, then you should remember its 4 primary guidelines and steps. It is also crucial to consider the exact level of your skills in this area, how much patience you have, and the specific technique you intend to use. Also note that while there are a lot of factors and tactics governing covert hypnosis, the following steps and stages are considered the basics for anyone who wishes to utilize it. Absorb or grab attention. Of course, the first crucial step you have to take as you are trying to take advantage of covert hypnosis is successfully absorbing and grabbing the attention of your subject. Here, you will have to utilize extreme focus, proficiency, and concentration, especially in terms of making the target or subject drawn to you. It is advisable to do this without any form of outer or external distractions. You have to focus on absorbing and grabbing their attention, as this is the key to making them completely glued to you and what you say. In other words, you have to ensure that you have their undivided focus and attention. This is achievable if you tell or ask them about an interesting topic, one that will surely pique their curiosity and interest. It is also possible to get through this stage with the help of other indirect yet effective techniques for attention absorption. Bypass critical factor. You have to undertake this second step if you want to successfully achieve and implement covert hypnosis. The critical factor that we are referring to here is that particular section of your brain telling you that it is impossible, meaning it has no chance of happening. Note, though, that this critical factor, the impossibility, is not the primary reason why hypnosis becomes ineffective. In several cases, it is because of how you resist the critical factor. With that, you really have to work on bypassing this kind of thinking, so you can proceed with this technique successfully. Stimulate a response from the unconscious. Covert hypnosis also has its third phase focusing on activating or stimulating a response from the target unconsciously. Once you get the unconscious response, it is safe to say that your subject has successfully reached the state of hypnosis. Note that unconsciousness responses come in various types, one of which is a response coming from your target's actual emotions. Your inability to get this kind of response from your subject means that you have not hypnotized them. In other words, you can't move on to the final stage yet, which will be all about getting your desired result. Guiding the unconscious to your preferred desired result. This is the last stage associated with the administering of covert hypnosis. Here, the goal is to guide and lead your target's subconscious mind so you will get the outcome or results that you are hoping for. Once you have made your subject reach the state of hypnosis, start implementing more hypnotic methods to make this final step possible. It is during this stage wherein you can use a few techniques, like keywords and suggestions, as a means of attaining your desired outcome. Covert hypnosis strategies. The thing that may have been bothering you now is how can you make this last step of the covert hypnosis process a success? The answer is by applying the right covert hypnosis techniques. In most cases, these tactics require you to use mere words while ensuring that they avoid the filtering of your subject's conscious mind. In other words, you have to be 100% sure that the information immediately goes into the subconscious. To make that happen, here are the most effective covert hypnosis strategies you can facilitate. Keywords. What you want to do here is to use specific key phrases and words that function directly as a form of the subconscious command. In other words, they are effective in putting aside the faculties making up your critical thinking. Some examples of such words are relax and visualize. Such command words can be immediately picked up by your subconscious mind, making it possible to act on them right away before your consciousness gives you the chance to say no. However, note that whether you use it on yourself or someone else, you have to make sure that you do not preoccupy your mind with other concerns. This is essential if you want to gain positive results. The most effective suggestion, in this case, is the visual image. It is the reason behind the effectiveness and strength of visualization. If your command word is to visualize or imagine, your mind will be programmed with anything you intend to imagine. You may be using just a simple keyword, but when done right, it is enough to program your mind effectively. Ambiguity. This is another technique that proves to be truly useful when doing covert hypnosis. In this technique, you will have to use ambiguous speeches for your audience. The ambiguity technique is actually one of the most common methods used by dictators, leaders, and other people in the world of politics who are hungry for power to put the public under hypnosis. Note, though, that several of the political leaders in different parts of the world often talk just like skilled orators. Now, you may be wondering how you can hypnotize people by using ambiguous language. Well, the answer is that it is the conscious mind that will most likely pick up meaningful, logical, and simple sentences. The goal of this technique is to utilize vague words and aim to instigate emotions so its effects will be tremendous. It is highly likely that the conscious mind will become busy trying to find out what the sentence means. Meanwhile, the subject can be expected to be bombarded with questions and suggestions. Example, a politician suggesting during this stage that the subject should vote for him. Conjunctions. It is also possible to do covert hypnosis with the help of covert conjunctions. In this tactic, you will have to express some absolute truths initially that are quickly verifiable by your subject or target audience. Once a set of accurate details and information are provided, you should suggest how you intend your subject or audience's mind to be engineered and programmed. You may also want to imagine your subconscious like a club. Here, you should also visualize a security guard who guards your club. This guard can be classified as your conscious mind. What the security guard in this case has to do is to prevent anyone who has a high chance of causing danger to enter the club. Your conscious mind also performs the functions of keeping all details and information that you do not agree with. At first, you can expect the guard to be really alert as they carefully observe the women entering. During conversations, expect to feel awkward and conscious during the initial phases when you are still trying to decipher or examine carefully the words that come out of the mouths of the other, especially if you are talking to a stranger. One example of conjunction that you can use is because. You can use it in linking two statements even if they are not completely related. Presupposition. There is also what we call presupposition, which is known to be really interesting since in the usual practice of hypnosis, the first thing you want to do would be to distract a person's conscious mind. Once distracted, it is safe to introduce your suggestion. However, take note that when we are talking about presupposition, you will have to make the opposite take place. Here, you will have to provide the suggestion first, after which, you have to distract the person's conscious mind. You have to do this correctly so you can avoid possible scrutiny. One goal when practicing presupposition is to eliminate extreme scrutiny and examination so your suggestion will be accepted without question. If you presuppose your suggestion in the form of a truth that no one can question, there is a possibility that your conscious mind will get distracted as it receives a lot of different information. Analog marketing. There is also what we call analog marketing, which, while sounding a bit technical and complex, is actually naturally existing in your daily conversations. In this technique, you will have to highlight certain phrases and keywords as you talk to someone. Your goal should be to communicate with the subconscious mind of a person directly. Note that it is natural for the human mind to evolve by paying attention to or observing any environmental changes all the time. This scenario is known as an oriental response. For example, if someone enters a door, it seems automatic for your head to turn so it can check who is exactly the person entering. You may view it as a conscious response, but in most cases, it is automatic and unconscious. It takes place even if your will is not involved. The natural ability of your subconscious mind to notice environmental changes naturally is the reason why you can use it in analog marking. Some even end up exploiting it. What you want to do is to induce or stimulate a kind of environmental change as you send your message in each conversation. By doing that, you have a higher chance of directly communicating with your subject's subconscious mind. Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, is it useful for mind control and manipulation? Another valuable instrument that one uses for mind control and manipulation is what we call neuro-linguistic programming, also called NLP. This technique can be implemented by changing one's behavior and thoughts in a way that they can attain positive and desirable results. According to many users, it is also effective in lowering their anxiety and improving their overall well-being. What exactly is NLP? NLP can be defined as an approach which mainly focuses on the way you connect and communicate with both yourself and other people. It also tackles the way it affects the behaviors of people and their individual outcomes. NLP became popular and widespread from the moment it began in the 70s. The people behind the development of NLP at the time were John Grinder and Richard Bandler. Both of them strongly believe in the possibility of identifying the behavioral and thought patterns of those who attain success and teaching such patterns to other people. Among its major uses are those that revolve around treating and dealing with anxiety disorders, overcoming phobias, boosting personal happiness, and improving performance, especially in the workplace. Basically, NLP utilizes behavioral, communication, and perceptual tactics designed to lessen the difficulties associated with altering the thoughts and actions of those around you. It encompasses a set of principles and strategies with the goal of influencing other people's emotions and behaviors using language and proper communication. It works based on the model that influences the behaviors, thoughts, and feelings within yourself and that of others. In addition, it uses language in such an empowering way that it can encourage one to make some changes in their limiting beliefs and unwanted habits. Another notable function of NLP is that it promotes better and stronger relationships with other people. Reaching your goals will also be easier through NLP. It was also discovered that NLP operates on the belief that it is possible to model the behaviors of other people as well as their results or outcome. In other words, you should start observing the behaviors and personalities of those you admire. You can internalize and attempt to copy their behaviors so you can achieve their success too. Using NLP in manipulations and mind control. Do you know that NLP also has great use in manipulation and mind control, especially if you are into making negotiations? The reason is that it works in building rapport, persuading others, eliciting information, and resolving conflicts. The following are some of the NLP techniques that you can use in the area of mind control and manipulation. Rapport building. This specific technique is a big help if your goal is to connect and communicate with others naturally. The goal here is to synchronize your unique style of communication with the subject of your mind control and manipulation tactics so you can establish trust between you. What's great about rapport building with the help of NLP is that it tends to develop more trust in talks and conversations. It is even possible for you to use this tactic if you are negotiating with someone because of your conflicting views. As a result of using it, there's a high chance for both parties to come up on an agreement or reach a middle ground. This is also a big help as it can mitigate conflict. For this NLP tactic to work, you have to ensure that it carries several of its key elements, among which are pacing one's expressions and adapting to them, active listening, stopping yourself from being too judgmental, bottom lining, which also means you have to clearly show where exactly you stand, backtracking, persuading, and leading. For instance, if your talk with a close friend turned into an argument, there is a high chance for the tone of their voice to turn heated. If uncontrolled, this may lead both of you to hurt each other. Note, though, that even if you do not want your voice to have a heated tone too, it can benefit you if you attempt to match the posture of the person you are talking to and their voice's volume, pitch, and speed. By doing that, you can build a stronger connection, which is also the key to demonstrating how much you understand them based on their perspective. It therefore contributes to persuading them to stop the potential conflict. Meta model. One fact about NLP is that it makes use of what we call the meta model as you intend to raise questions regarding the beliefs that you have in common and the way one looks at reality. With this NLP technique, you will discover that almost all people utilize cognitive distortions, also known as thought fillers, that will help you look at not only yourself, but also other people and events more negatively than what is actual. In most cases, you get to respond to such thoughts more frequently compared to reality. You can also use language in reinforcing them even further. When it comes to the meta model, expect it to have questions that you can either ask yourself or other people. The goal of asking such questions is to contrast the thoughts and statements of someone and hope that it will control their behaviors. For instance, if your conversation with someone causes you to feel irritated as the other party seems to interrupt you all the time, in this case, reflect on the number of times they already do it to you during the exchange. After that, you can respond using the evidence rather than your assumption. Modeling. Another effective and powerful NLP technique is modeling, which recreates one's way of enriching the way you look at the world. One thing to note about modeling is that you are allowed to model one's mindset, belief system, excellence, and behavior. One may even feel like someone is imitating or copying them because of it. The goal of NLP is to channel the traits and behaviors of one and comprehend the manner through which they behave and think. Mirroring. In mirroring, the emphasis is more on how important both nonverbal and verbal cues and signals are. Matching or mirroring the energy of someone and sometimes their body language and posture helps make you look more trustworthy and likable unconsciously. In this technique, you will have to mirror or match the body language of another person, like their posture, gesture, tone of voice, and eye movements. By doing that, you can drive and encourage more people to like you. It can improve your rapport with others and enhance the way you communicate. In addition, it can sidestep any argument or conflict. Mirroring also plays a vital role in influencing a situation's outcome. Additional tips for protection purposes. Note that NLP also finds its use in resistance and manipulation. The reason is some of them may attempt to derail, distract, or deceive you, thereby preventing you from reaching your goals. With that, you really have to be skilled in handling NLP manipulation and resistance when you are in negotiations. The following are some of the things you can do to keep yourself protected from harmful manipulations and ensure that you get to maintain your edge and advantage. Be knowledgeable of the signs. Do you want to detect right away whenever someone is manipulating or controlling you through NLP? Then observe some of its common signs. One possible sign is the use of contradictory and unclear words and language that also tend to sound confusing or misleading. Watch out for hypnotic patterns being used against you, too. Some examples are commands, repetition, and embedded recommendations and suggestions designed to influence and persuade the subconscious. There are also those that trigger you emotionally. This involves using certain emotions like flattery, guilt, and fear as a means of manipulating your feelings and keeping you under control. Other signs that you are now being manipulated through NLP are the following: framing, pre-framing, or reframing. The goal of manipulators here is to change or shape your point of view on a particular situation. The way you look at an outcome may also be changed. Diverting, deflecting, or distracting you. Manipulators do this so they can avoid the need to address certain concerns and answer questions. Matching, mirroring, and anchoring. Find out whether these NLP techniques are also used against you by others. The ultimate goal of these techniques is to establish a fake kind of rapport. With that, it can give you a feeling that you have already built a connection, even if it is imagined or unreal. Make sure that you are cautious and alert so you can immediately catch these signs. If you notice that most of these things are being done to you by someone, you have to reflect even deeper before taking action. By doing that, you can prevent those manipulative tendencies of others brought on by the practice of NLP from affecting your ability to make decisions and formulate judgments. Challenge, test assumptions. Handling NLP manipulation is also possible if you challenge the implied assumptions of the other party. Note that an indicator of manipulation occurs if one does things that make you form different assumptions about them, such as being more authoritative, influential, knowledgeable, and interesting. You may also assume that they are more capable of building rapport. Avoid accepting such implied assumptions right away. You should look for evidence that is indeed true first so you can justify it. Some questions you can ask that will question assumptions are: how did you find out about that? And can you provide more details regarding that? If you ask these questions, it would be easier for you to challenge assumptions and find out the intention and agenda that the other party may be concealing. Counter strategies. Of course, since you are already aware of some of the most effective NLP strategies, you can also handle someone who is doing it to you by countering the techniques they use. Instead of being completely influenced and manipulated by them, you can use certain tactics, one of which is presupposition, that requires you to use statements implying something even if you do not say it explicitly. Fight this technique by questioning or rejecting the presupposition. A good manipulator may also use meta-models that refer to questions challenging your logic or language. Countering this technique is possible by using meta-models too. You may also want to stop yourself from providing unclear answers. There are also times when the manipulator utilizes abstract or unclear language as a means of appealing to your feelings and emotions or by bypassing your logic and critical thinking. Handling this technique used against you by using the same models too, you should also begin asking for additional and more specific details. The goal for countering the NLP strategies used against you for mind control, influence, and manipulation is to resist it. This is necessary if you want to retain your position and perspective. Build boundaries. One more thing that you can do if you want to stop manipulative people from using NLP strategies to control and influence you is to be clear about your boundaries. Return to your established boundaries, the ones you set to yourself, and encourage yourself to stick with them. The boundaries we are talking about here refer to the rules and restrictions you established and created for yourself as well as the other party, especially if you are in the process of negotiating something. Some examples of these boundaries are the interests, expectations, principles, goals, options, criteria, standards, values, responsibilities, rights, and walk-away points you have initially agreed upon. You need to go back to these restrictions so you can immediately detect if someone is attempting to control you. By establishing and stating your boundaries again and sticking to them, you can convey your needs and wants to the other party more confidently and clearly. In addition, this move prevents the other from crossing the lines and violating your established restrictions and rights. Conclusion. Mind control and manipulation may sound scary and unethical, but it is something that you can actually do with proper guidance and knowledge about the field. The most important thing you should do if you intend to use it in areas of your life that require you to have full control of the situation is to practice both while still sticking to ethical standards. As much as possible, do not do it to cause irreparable damage to someone. You have to be a responsible user and implementer of mind control and manipulation tactics. I hope that this book can help you make that happen. Hopefully, it gave you some enlightenment in the world of mind control and manipulation, uncovering its secrets and how to make it work in your favor while still considering the safety of your subject or target. The contents of this book also aim to help you catch anyone who is attempting to abuse you through manipulation and mind control. With that, you can surely immediately set up a defense against them and ensure that no one can exploit and take advantage of you.
We appreciate you tuning in to one of our captivating audiobooks. For more immersive experiences, here is another audiobook we're certain you'll enjoy. Don't forget to show your support by liking this video, sharing what you loved about this audiobook in the comments section below, and subscribing for more captivating audiobooks like this. Thanks for being a part of our audiobook community.